Chapter 9:17. Give me the life force in your body. This is your punishment for showing hostility towards me. The black-robed Ningfan's tone was extremely domineering. As soon as he landed on the ancient green stone path, he immediately walked towards the snake-haired old man. The snake-haired old man was initially feeling a little uneasy. However, when he sensed the chi of Ningfan's cultivation base, his heart was immediately relieved. He narrowed his eyes and said with a cold smile, "You want me to give you the life force in my body? Humph. How arrogant. Junior, if I'm not mistaken, your cultivation base should only be at the mid-shedding void realm before you were suppressed by the forbidden immortal power, right? How dare a junior like you speak arrogantly to me and try to seize the life force in my body? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. According to my rules, since you spoke rudely to me, you must atone for it with your death. I won't kill you with my own hands. Just commit suicide so that you won't be humiliated in my hands." As soon as he finished speaking, the snake-haired old man stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the sky with the temperament of a senior expert. He did not put Ningfan, who was approaching him, in his eyes at all. From the snake-haired old man's point of view, it was already merciful of him to give Ningfan the chance to commit suicide after Ningfan had spoken arrogantly to him. If Ningfan refuses to commit suicide obediently, I don't mind killing this junior shedding void realm with my own hands. Ningfan ignored the snake-haired old man and continued walking towards him. Seeing that Ningfan was unwilling to commit suicide, the snake-haired old man opened his eyes impatiently and snorted. "Stubborn fool. Since you refuse to commit suicide, I will send you to hell with my own hands. Let me show you the terror of a thought-breaking realm cultivator. Dao Sense Technique, Green Flood Dragon Transformation into Scissors." The snake-haired old man suddenly put his hands together. Immediately, two gigantic shadows of green flood dragons intertwined with each other appeared between heaven and earth. It was the Dao image that he had cultivated for many years. The Dao image shone brightly. The two entangled dragons actually turned into a gigantic pair of scissors. It directly descended and cut towards Ningfan's waist. This is this old man's unique skill. You should be proud that you can die under this technique. As soon as he finished speaking, the snake-haired old man closed his eyes slightly, as if he had already foreseen the scene where Ningfan would be cut by the green flood dragon scissors. Facing the green flood dragon scissors attack, Ningfan just slowly raised his right hand and pointed with his index finger. Shagu! A demonic wind blew between heaven and earth, and the black fog surged over. Above the sea of clouds, an enormous black butterfly demon image slowly appeared. It seemed illusory, like a black-colored flame that flickered indeterminately, and it emanated an ominous and evil aura. As the black-robed Ningfan uttered the word Kashigu, the billowing black mist instantly condensed into a 1,000 zhang ray of light, which directly pressed down on the green WIRM scissors. With a loud bang, the green flood dragon scissors was directly crushed into countless pieces by Ningfan's finger. The snake-haired old man, who was closing his eyes and pretending to be an expert, suddenly opened his eyes, which were full of disbelief. Before he could react, Ningfan's 1,000 zhang finger light had already rushed towards him and pressed down on his head. As soon as the finger beam pressed down, the snake-haired old man's entire body felt like it was about to be torn apart, and he felt endless pain. The enormous power of the finger spread out, and the snake-haired old man immediately flew backward while vomiting blood. After flying for a distance of 1,000 feet, he fell heavily on the ancient bluestone road. His whole body seemed to have become a bloody man. The current him no longer had the slightest disdain in his eyes. Instead, there was only shock and fear. He knew that he had misjudged Ningfan. Ningfan was definitely not a junior Shikong. This finger attack of this person is too strong. Even if I am not careless and use all my strength, I certainly won't be able to withstand this attack head-on. I can only retreat. This person is definitely not Shikong. Even if he isn't at the late thought fragmentation realm, he must be at the mid-thought fragmentation realm, who is half a step away from it. Damn it. If I knew that this person is strong, I wouldn't have dared to talk nonsense with him. I would certainly have escaped long ago. At this moment, the snake-haired old man's heart was filled with regret. Ning Fan ignored the snake-haired old man. He raised his finger again and pointed at the snake-haired old man. Kashigu. As the finger was pointed, endless black mist immediately appeared above the sea of clouds. It was like a black ocean, directly drowning the snake-haired old man. The black mist seemed to have a sealing power. Being inside the black mist, the snake-haired old man could not move at all. Within the black mist, there was a suction force that devoured the demonic power in the snake-haired old man's body, constantly erasing his cultivation base. That kind of erasure could not be defended at all. 1 breath erased 1,000 years of cultivation base. 10 breaths erased 10,000 years of cultivation base. The snake-haired old man had a profound cultivation base. Losing 10,000 years of cultivation base was nothing to him. However, what made him panic was that the life force in his body was also being crazily devoured by the black mist at a terrifying speed. If he was not seriously injured by Ning Fan's finger attack, he might still be able to slightly resist the loss of life force. However, at this moment, his injuries were extremely serious and he no longer had the strength to resist the loss of life force. In just 10 breaths, 90% of the snake-haired old man's life force was directly extracted by Ning Fan. After 10 breaths, the black mist gradually dissipated. Looking at the snake-haired old man who was on the verge of death, Ning Fan frowned. It's not enough. Even if I drain all the life force in this snake-haired old man's body, it's still not enough for the barbarian mark to devour. Forget it. I'll drain all the life force in this person's body first. Ning Fan lifted his finger again, as if he wanted to use the returning void finger again to take away all the life force of the snake-haired old man. The snake-haired old man collapsed to the ground. As soon as he saw Ning Fan lifting his finger again, his face turned pale with fright, and he begged for mercy. Fellow Taoist, please wait. If you have something to say, we can talk it out. Please don't drain my life force again. 90% of the life force in my body has already been drained by fellow Taoist. If the remaining 10% is also drained, I will definitely die. I can see it now. Fellow Taoist, didn't you just reach a bottleneck in your cultivation, and you need a large amount of life force for your cultivation? As for the life force, it's not a problem. I have plenty of it. As long as fellow Taoists spare my life, I am willing to offer you a treasure. The life force contained in it is definitely enough for fellow Taoists' cultivation. Fellow Taoist, let's make a deal. If you spare my life, I will give you a treasure. Fellow Taoist, please have mercy. Before the snake-haired old man could finish his words, Ning Fan directly grabbed his neck and lifted him up like a little chick. He was originally short and was only a little taller than a dwarf. Now that he was lifted up by Ning Fan, he looked a little funny. What is the treasure that you mentioned that contains the life force? Ning Fan asked coldly. It's, I can't say it. Fellow Taoist hasn't agreed to spare my life yet. I don't dare to say it. Once I say it, fellow Taoist will definitely. The snake-haired old man suddenly let out a miserable shriek and fainted. Ning Fan was too lazy to talk nonsense with the snake-haired old man. He directly used the reverse spirit technique to search his soul. After searching his soul, Ning Fan's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. He took away the snake-haired old man's storage pouch and threw him on the ground. After searching the pouch for a while, Ning Fan took out a piece of purple python bone from it. As soon as Ning Fan saw that the life force contained in this python bone was actually 100 times more than the life force in the snake-haired old man's body, he immediately nodded his head in satisfaction. This item is a piece of bone left behind by the ancestor of the heaven-devouring python clan, after he passed away. Once a member of the heaven-devouring python clan dies, they will retract their life force into their bones and pass it on to their descendants. If I don't have this bone, I might need to seize the life force of a few more people to have enough for my barbarian mark to devour. With this bone, it can save me some trouble. Ning Fan kept the python bone and frowned slightly. He glanced at the snake-haired old man and said indifferently, "Don't pretend to be dead. The python bone that you offered is quite useful to me. I can let you go and spare your life. But the premise is that you help me unseal the python bone." The python bone did contain a large amount of life force, but it was in a sealed state. The seal was not strong. If Ning Fan wanted to, he could easily break it. However, the seal was extremely special. If the seal was broken in the wrong way, the life force contained in the python bone would dissipate in an instant. The correct way to break the seal could only be performed by the members of the heaven-devouring python clan. That was to use the power of the demon bloodline of the heaven-devouring python to break the seal. Outsiders who did not have the bloodline of the heaven-devouring python would not be able to break the seal. The snake-haired old man was still unconscious on the ground. He did not seem to have any reaction to Ning Fan's words. Seeing that, Ning Fan raised his finger again, as if he was going to use the returning ruined finger again to take the snake-haired old man's life. As soon as the snake-haired old man saw that Ning Fan was going to use the returning ruined finger again, he who was unconscious on the ground quickly got up from the ground and exclaimed in a hurry, "Fellow Taoist, please stop. You can't. If you use this finger, I will definitely die." "You're not pretending to be dead anymore?" "I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not pretending anymore. Hee hee." The snake-haired old man smiled awkwardly at Ning Fan. Then he rolled his eyes and said, "I didn't take a closer look just now. Only now did I realize that fellow Taoist is actually a fake ancient demon. It turns out that fellow Taoist is a fellow Taoist of my demon race. I apologize for my rudeness. I wonder which race are you from? Just now, when fellow Taoist searched my memory, what you used seemed to be the reverse spirit technique of the True Dragon clan. This technique seems to only be performed by the ancient immortal venerables of the True Dragon clan. How did fellow Taoist manage to?" On the surface, the snake-haired old man was smiling apologetically. Actually, his heart was already filled with huge waves. He was secretly guessing if Ning Fan was the ancient immortal venerables of the True Dragon clan. Otherwise, he would definitely not be able to cultivate the reverse spirit technique. Ning Fan did not intend to waste his breath on the snake-haired old man. He directly tossed the python bone to him. "I'll give you the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Unseal this python bone. If you can't do it, you will die. If you say another word of nonsense, you will die." The snake-haired old man caught the python bone in a flurry. His entire body was filled with cold air. How would he dare to talk nonsense with Ning Fan anymore? He obediently shut his mouth. He looked at the python bone in his hand with a slightly complicated expression, and then looked at Ning Fan. Then he clenched his teeth and sat cross-legged on the ground. He activated the bloodline power in his body and began to unseal the python bone. Sigh. In the past, I only managed to obtain such a small piece of the ancestral python bone from my clan after making countless contributions. I didn't expect that I would have to give it to someone else before I could devour it. Forget it. As long as I can keep my life, what's the harm in giving up this python bone? This person is highly likely to be an immortal venerables of the True Dragon clan. I can't afford to offend him. I just hope that he can keep his promise and spare my life after I help him unseal this bone. In just the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the snake-haired old man completed the unsealing of the python bone and handed it to Ning Fan respectfully. Ning Fan took the python bone and looked at it. Then he nodded with satisfaction. With a flash, his body immediately shattered into countless black demonic lights and disappeared from the 21st Ancient Path. At the same time, in the 78th Palace of the 19th Ancient Path, Ning Fan, who had been meditating with his eyes closed, opened his eyes for the first time. From the beginning to the end, Ning Fan's true body did not leave the 19th Ancient Path. He just used his divine ability to transform into a black-robed demon form and descended beside the snake-haired old man. That was all. Currently, Ning Fan's life force had been severely depleted. As he withdrew his divine ability, a large amount of life force immediately appeared in his body, and a purple python bone appeared in his hand. Ning Fan placed the python bone on his knees and touched it with his finger, absorbing the life force within it. Gradually, the barbarian marks in his body devoured enough life force. The backlash began to lessen and gradually subsided. Gradually, Ning Fan's ears were filled with illusory sounds of barbarians chanting scriptures. It seemed to be very close but also very far away at the same time. It was difficult to hear the content of the scriptures clearly. He sat cross-legged in the main hall. The barbarian marks on his body constantly gave off a scorching feeling. At the same time, the shadow of an ancient statue slowly appeared behind him. The ancient statue was not solid. It only had a head, no face, and its limbs were only rough outlines. It was roughly in the shape of a human. At the moment when the ancient statue was formed, Ning Fan's body produced more and more barbarian blood. Within the barbarian blood, there were traces of bloodline memories that flowed into Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. Those bloodline memories were related to the 9 damaged tribulations of the young barbarian priest. Only now did Ning Fan know that the backlash that would occur when the number of barbarian marks reached 100 was called the damaged tribulation. What he had just passed was the 3rd damaged tribulation of the young barbarian priest. Ning Fan abruptly opened his eyes and looked at the ancient statue behind him. From the memories of his bloodline, Ning Fan knew that this ancient statue was called the young barbarian statue by the barbarian cultivators in the barbarian race. It was the symbol of the young barbarian priest of each tribe. Condensing the young barbarian statue meant that one had become the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. I'm not a barbarian. I actually became the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. It's the chi of the young barbarian statue. That young man has really condensed the young barbarian statue. On the 6th and 7th floor of the heavenly tower, the first ancestor, the second ancestor and the 4th ancestor were shocked. They stopped moving and looked at the direction of the heavenly tower with deep eyes. Others might not be able to sense the formation of the young barbarian statue, but the 3 of them who were the barbarian ancestors could sense it. At this moment, the second ancestor and the 4th ancestor's eyes were filled with greed. Since Ning Fan had passed the 3rd damaged tribulation and condensed the young barbarian statue, theoretically, his body should have produced a drop of the barbarian race's ancestral blood. If they devoured this drop of Ning Fan's ancestral blood, they would certainly gain a lot of benefits. The second ancestor and the 4th ancestor really wanted to rush to the 3rd floor of the heavenly tower to kill Ning Fan and devour his bloodline. Unfortunately, the 2 of them did not have the time to care about Ning Fan at the moment. They had to climb all the way to the highest floor of the heavenly tower. What a pity. I really want to devour this young man. The second ancestor and the 4th ancestor said regretfully. The first ancestor's eyes, however, were filled with fervor and seriousness. There was not much greed in them. I didn't expect this young man to really become the young barbarian minister. In this case, the ancestral barbarian blood that this young man possesses can become the best sacrificial offering to awaken the 9th barbarian god. The only pity is that this young man is currently in the lower floor of the heavenly tower. I'm in a hurry to head to the highest floor of the heavenly tower. I don't have the time to return to the lower floor to capture this young man. Forget it. I still have a few sacrificial offerings that can be used. It's not like I have to use this young man. The first ancestor shook his head. He withdrew his gaze and continued to move forward. Even though he really wanted to capture Ning Fan and turn him into a sacrificial offering, it was a pity that he did not have the time to do so now. On the 3rd floor of the heavenly tower, in the 78th palace of the 19th ancient road, as soon as he condensed his own young barbarian statue, Ning Fan's body immediately produced a large amount of barbarian blood. Vaguely, there was even a drop of ancestral barbarian blood forming in Ning Fan's body. From the memories of his bloodline, he already knew that what he had just gone through was the 3rd damaged tribulation of the young barbarian minister. He also knew that once he goes through the 3rd ancestral blood tribulation and becomes the young barbarian minister, his body would produce a drop of ancestral barbarian blood. Ning Fan already knew all of this. However, when he sensed that there was an additional drop of ancestral blood in his body, he could not help but feel a little moved. An ordinary immortal venerable from the ancient times would need to spend at least millions of years of hard work to produce a drop of ancestral blood. He had just gone through the 3rd damaged tribulation of the young barbarian minister, and he could already produce a drop of ancestral blood. It was really a great benefit for him. Unfortunately, the ancestral blood did not stay in Ning Fan's body for long before it was devoured by the Jia blood. The ancestral barbarian blood was devoured without any hesitation. Being a Jia blood, that was how capricious he was. The aura force of the ancestral barbarian blood rose from Ningfan's body. Very quickly, that aura force dissipated and mixed with the aura force of the Jie blood. I didn't expect this Jie blood to be so domineering. It can even devour ancestral barbarian blood. Ningfan's eyes were solemn as he muttered to himself. He could not help but be solemn. After absorbing the bloodline power of the entire drop of ancestral blood, the level of his Jie blood skyrocketed once again. The level of his Jie blood was originally 9-star broken blood. The difference between 9-star broken blood and 1-star true blood was like the distance between heaven and earth. It was extremely huge. Under normal circumstances, it was unimaginably difficult for him to break through to the true blood Jie blood. However, with the help of this drop of ancestral barbarian blood, the difficulty was reduced by a lot. Ningfan sat cross-legged on the ground. The red light on his body became denser and denser. The Jie blood was boiling in his body. The level of the Jie blood was slowly approaching the level of 1-star true blood. Large amounts of red tribulation clouds began to appear in the entire third level of the heaven fault. Vaguely, there was the first scarlet bolt of heavenly tribulation lightning striking down from the sky. It was followed by the second, the third and the fourth bolt of lightning. More and more tribulation lightning formed in the sky and struck down towards the sea of clouds. One by one, the early thought fragmentation realm old monsters, who were challenging the third level of the heaven fault, hurriedly walked out of their palaces and looked towards the sky. Their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the red tribulation lightning. No one knew why the heavenly tribulation phenomenon would appear in the third level of the heaven fault. No one knew what the red tribulation lightning signified. No one knew that the red tribulation lightning was the tribulation lightning that was formed from the power of tribulation sense. All they knew was that the power of the red tribulation lightning was too terrifying. Any one of them was enough to kill a life immortal realm cultivator. 10 of them could kill Duzhen. 100 of them could kill Shek Kong. 1,000 of them could kill sense fragmentation. In the desolate land that was suppressed by the forbidden immortal force, one only needed 100 of them to kill an early thought fragmentation realm old monster. What is this lightning? Be it Mounz or old ancestor Jin Hua, each of the thought fragmentation realm old monsters in the third level of the heaven fault felt a chill run down their spines when they saw the red lightning above their heads. The number of the lightning increased. Eventually, there were 999 of them. All of a sudden, the 999 lightning bolts whistled and flew towards the 19th ancient path. They flew into the 78th palace and entered Ningfan's body. At this moment, Ningfan's tribulation blood had completely broken through the level of a 1-star true blood. At this moment, a demonic red talisman appeared on the back of Ningfan's right hand. As soon as the talisman was activated, 999 tribulation lightning bolts coiled around Ningfan's body. Ningfan's ears were filled with the sound of wind and thunder. These tribulation lightning bolts are the abilities that the Tide Song Tribulation Spirit Tribulation Blood obtained after achieving minor completion. Ningfan looked at the red tribulation lightning and muttered. With a thought, the scarlet talisman on the back of his right hand immediately went into hiding. The tribulation lightning bolts that coiled around his body also disappeared. As he activated the talisman again, the 999 tribulation lightning bolts appeared one after another. The power of these tribulation lightning bolts is very strong. I only need one lightning bolt to kill a life immortal realm cultivator. 10 tribulation lightning bolts are enough to kill an early truth realm cultivator. 100 tribulation lightning bolts are enough to kill an early void shedding realm cultivator. Today, I have 999 tribulation lightning bolts. With these tribulation lightning bolts, I can sweep across all void-shedding realm experts. In this desolate land that is suppressed by the forbidden immortal force, I can even kill a peak thought fragmentation realm expert with just a raise of my hand. Is this the power of the Tide Song Tribulation Spirit? Ningfan opened his mouth and swallowed all the 999 tribulation lightning bolts back into his body. Today, he had already become the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. Today, he had broken through the bottleneck of the 1-star true blood with the help of that drop of ancestral realm barbarian blood, and achieved minor completion in his tribulation blood. The Tide Song Tribulation Spirit who achieved minor completion in his Tribulation Blood was already invincible in the void-shedding realm. Now that Ningfan's Tribulation Blood had broken through to the 1-star True Blood, he was almost invincible in the void-shedding realm. The shadow of the young barbarian statue behind him gradually disappeared. Ningfan suddenly stood up. His body was shrouded in red light. He walked out of the 78th palace and entered the 79th palace. In just a breath's time, Ningfan passed the 79th palace and entered the 80th palace in a flash. In another breath's time, Ningfan passed the 80th palace and entered the 81st palace. After entering the 3rd level of the Heaven Fault, Ningfan's speed of passing through the palaces had gradually slowed down. However, as his Tribulation Blood broke through and his strength improved tremendously, his speed of passing through the palaces once again increased to a terrifying speed. At the moment when Ningfan became the young barbarian priest, the barbarian summoning technique that the 5 ancestors planted in his body was automatically broken. Even though the barbarian summoning technique was broken on its own, there would still be one more barbarian mark on Ningfan's body every time he passed through a palace. After passing through the 82nd and 83rd palace, Ningfan arrived at the 84th palace. The difficulty of passing through the 84th palace was a few times higher than the 83rd palace. No early thought fragmentation realm old monster could pass through this palace. Be it Mounz, old ancestor Jin Hua, or even the snake-haired old man who was severely injured by Ningfan, none of them could go any further. The 84th palace corresponded to the 306th barbarian mark. At the moment when Ningfan entered the 84th palace, he could already feel the heavy pressure that rushed towards him. He smiled faintly. 46, 96,156,226. Sure enough, the next number is 306. The pressure was extremely heavy, but Ningfan was able to ignore it. In less than a breath's time he had passed through the 84th palace. The moment he passed through the 84th palace, the number of barbarian marks on Ningfan's body had reached 306. Barbarian blood was produced in his body once again. Whenever the number of barbarian marks reaches 100, a damaged tribulation will descend. If I pass through the damaged tribulation, my body will produce barbarian blood. If the number of barbarian marks reaches 46, 96, 156 and other specific numbers, barbarian blood will also be produced. Ningfan's mind was racing. His feet didn't slow down at all as he passed through the palace at an extremely fast speed. My tribulation blood can increase my grade by devouring barbarian blood. Currently, my tribulation blood has already reached the level of 1-star true blood, but I wonder how much more barbarian blood I need to devour to break through to the 2-star true blood. With just the strength of my tribulation blood, I'm already invincible in the void-abandoning realm. If I break through to the 2-star true blood, I wonder how much stronger I will become. Ningfan passed through the 111th palace of the 3rd level of the Heavenly Fault very quickly. Ningfan walked along the ancient bluestone path and reached the highest point of the 3rd level of the Sea of Clouds. Once again, the old man's voice resounded in his ears. You are my true clansman. You are the orthodox barbarian. My left hand is the barbarian, the life fire of all living beings. My right hand is the tribulation, the Tao of heaven and earth. The combination of tribulation and barbarian is the barbarian god. You have gained something in the 3rd level. I will not bestow you with any additional fortune. Come, my clansmen, come to the top of the Heavenly Fault. I will wait for you. Let me give you the blessing of the barbarian god. Chapter 9:18. While Ningfan was pondering, circles of light from the teleportation formation lit up under his feet. Without further ado, he stepped into the formation and teleported to the 4th level of the Heavenly Palace. There were a total of 48 ancient paths made of green stones at the entrance of the 4th level. All of them could lead to the 5th level. In the 4th level, Ningfan sensed the chi of 15 sense fragmentation old monsters. Most of them were at the mid or late sense fragmentation realm. Only a few of them were at the peak sense fragmentation realm. As for the mid and late sense fragmentation realm old monsters, most of them stopped at the 63rd palace of the 4th level. As for the peak sense fragmentation realm old monsters, even though they had the ability to pass the 63rd palace, their speed was as slow as a turtle's crawl. Only a few peak sense fragmentation realm old monsters could reach the 5th level of the heavenly palace. The corresponding number of barbarian marks in the 63rd palace of the 4th level is 396. After 306, it should be 396. This level is a challenge for the sense fragmentation realm old monsters. However, it's not difficult for me since I have attained minor accomplishment in the tribulation blood realm. However, the 7th ancestor isn't in the 4th level. He's in a higher level. So, I have to speed up. Ningfan's eyes slightly narrowed. He did not forget his original purpose of coming to the Nine Heavens Palace. His original purpose was to take back the souls of 1 million barbarians from the 7th barbarian ancestor. He did not come here to try his luck. He had no intention of peeking at the ancient passageway in this place. His target was the 7th ancestor. With a sway of his body, he directly turned into a ray of dazzling red light and dashed towards the 27th ancient road. It was a path that was uninhabited. As soon as he stepped onto the ancient path, all 15 of the thought-fragmenting patriarchs sensed him and sent their divine will in his direction. Due to the layers of clouds, these old monsters could not see Ningfan's appearance clearly. Vaguely, they could only see a human figure dashing out in red light. That red light was enchanting and evil. Another thought fragmentation eccentric has entered the 4th level. Judging from his aura, he seemed to be an old monster of the human race. Hiss. What kind of divine ability was that red light? Why did it give this old man a soul-stirring feeling? No matter who this person is, he is definitely not someone this old man can provoke. An old monster of the demon race felt his heart skip a beat. He was a peak thought fragmentation realm old monster, but he actually could not withstand the grand heaven tribulation. Might of Ningfan's great heaven tribulation, might after his tribulation blood reached the minor success stage. Without a cultivation base at the mid-thought shatterer stage or above, it's impossible to enter the 4th level of the heavenly court. This person's chi isn't strong. On the surface, he seems to be much weaker than a mid-thought fragmentation realm old monster. Strange. Is he hiding his cultivation base? Or is he not a mid-thought fragmentation realm old monster, but entered this level using a special method? Speaking of which, when he entered the 4th level, he didn't seem to have torn open the sky? How did he enter the 4th level? Some of the old monsters were filled with doubts. After a round of probing, the 15 old monsters gradually withdrew their spirit sense and stopped paying attention to Ningfan. After all, they still had to explore the palaces themselves. It was impossible for them to pay attention to others all the time. Ningfan did not have the intention to pay attention to others. He just wanted to rush to the 5th level as quickly as possible. In this 4th level where even peak thought fragmentation realm old monsters could not move an inch, he was actually able to pass through one palace after another at a terrifying speed. Ningfan only used one breath to pass through the first palace. He also used one breath to pass through the second palace, the third palace, the third palace, the 5th palace. Ningfan only used less than a breath of time to pass through each of the palaces. The palaces constantly emitted dazzling divine light, plating layers upon layers of divine brilliance above the sea of clouds. Hiss. What kind of speed is this? This person only used one breath to pass through the palaces. One must know that this is the 4th level of the heavenly palace. The 4th level of the palaces is extremely difficult to pass. Even peak thought fragmentation realm old monsters would not be able to move an inch. This person's speed is only comparable to an ancient immortal venerable. Could it be that this person is an ancient immortal venerable? Among the 15 thought fragmentation realm old monsters, 9 of them were old monsters of the demon race. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Almost all of them believed that Ningfan was an ancient immortal venerable. They could sense the human chi that Ningfan deliberately released from his body. They thought that this person was actually an ancient immortal venerable of the human race. He was not a 6 combos immortal venerable, nor was he immortal venerable Miao Yan. The 2 ancient immortal venerables of the human race had already ascended to the higher levels of the heavenly palace. Where did this person come from? Why would there be a third ancient immortal venerable of the human race in the uncivilized world? Who is this ancient immortal venerable of the human race? Each of the old monsters of the demon race secretly guessed. Some of them even used a secret technique to inform the higher-ups of the heavenly palace. The 6 thought fragmentation realm experts of the human race on the 4th level of the heavenly palace were suddenly filled with excitement. Although the members of the demon race did not know the identity of the human race, they were able to guess Ningfan's identity. If there is a third ancient immortal venerable of the human race in the uncivilized world, it must be Senior Zhao Jian. I didn't expect that Senior Zhao Jian would also come to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. While the 6 of them were muttering, one of them used a secret technique to send a secret message to the higher-ups of the heavenly palace. Ningfan moved forward silently, ignoring everything around him. His body seemed to have become one with the red light of the tribulation sense. Scarlet lightning kept flashing around his body. That was the lightning of the tribulation sense. Currently, he could easily defeat all the fragmentation realm old monsters in this place with just the power of his minor accomplishment tribulation blood. Only a few immortal venerables could suppress the power of his small success tribulation blood. The 6th palace, the 7th palace, the 8th palace. Ningfan continued to advance through the palaces. His barbarian marks were also increasing one after another. He continued until he reached the 63rd palace. This palace was the place where the mid and late fragmentation realm old monsters would stop. However, it only took Ningfan one breath to force his way through. The number of his barbarian marks had reached 396. Immediately, a small amount of barbarian blood appeared in his body. Devouring this barbarian blood did not have much effect on improving his tribulation blood. The 64th palace, the 65th palace, the 67th palace. The corresponding number of barbarian marks in this palace was 400. After advancing through this palace, Ningfan's barbarian marks had reached 400. However, he did not receive the 4th tribulation. The 4th tribulation didn't descend? Ningfan was slightly stunned. His expression turned solemn. When he became the young barbarian lord, he gained a lot of memories from the barbarian race's bloodline. He knew that the young barbarian lord who was promoted through the barbarian summoning technique would face 9 tribulations in total. Of course, one would be able to become the young barbarian lord after successfully overcoming the first 3 tribulations. However, if the number of barbarian marks in the young barbarian lord's barbarian marks continues to increase and they break through 100 barriers again, they would still face the next tribulations. According to the introduction of the bloodline, Ningfan would face the 4th tribulation when his barbarian marks reach 400. However, the truth was that the 4th tribulation did not descend. If the 4th tribulation descends now, it won't be difficult for me to get through it with the purple python bone that I obtained. However, I don't know why the 4th tribulation didn't descend. Ningfan flipped his hand and took out the purple python bone. There was still 90% of its life force left. He had only used 10% of its life force to get through the 3rd tribulation. He flipped his hand again and kept the python bone. After a moment of silence, he dashed out of the 67th palace and continued moving forward. Without the disturbance of the 4th tribulation, he naturally did not need to waste time in the 67th palace. The 68th palace, the 69th palace, the 70th palace, the 71st palace. Ningfan went through 111 palaces and stepped on the teleportation formation under his feet, entering the 5th level of the heavenly palace. Strangely, the voice of the old man did not appear this time, just like the 4th tribulation that had disappeared. The Tongtian ancient emperor, who was in the crimson passageway, frowned and stared at the stone monument in front of him. Ningfan's ranking on the monument had risen to the 9th place at an astonishing speed. The top 8 were respectively the 4 barbarian ancestors, and the immortal venerables of the human race and the demon race. Ningfan was the 9th place. His ranking did not have a name, but it was already impossible for the Tongtian ancient emperor to ignore it. The 9th place. Could this nameless cultivator really be an ancient cultivator? He entered the 9 heavenly palaces, the latest among all of us, But in just a short period of time, he has already surpassed all the broken-sense-old monsters and entered the 5th level. The Tongtian ancient emperor stared at the giant monument. At this moment, Ningfan's position was displayed as the 97th palace of the 4th level. Every breath, Ningfan's position would change. In just 10 breaths, Ningfan's position had changed to the 1st palace of the 5th level. According to my deduction, there should only be 8 ancient immortal venerables in this desolate land. Could it be that I've made a mistake? If this person is really the 9th immortal venerable, which race does he belong to? The human race? The demon race? Or perhaps, this person is one of the surviving barbarian ancestors. The Tongtian ancient emperor's brows were tightly knitted. He was used to having everything under control and hated changes. Perhaps, Ningfan's sudden appearance would be a great change in the competition for the ancient passageway between the human race and the demon race. Fellow Daoist Meng Xuanzi, can you use your ability to confirm this person's cultivation base and race? The Tongtian ancient emperor asked Meng Xuanzi. This is very difficult. But if I can borrow 2 treasures from you, I have a 30% chance of detecting this person's cultivation base and race. Meng Xuanzi answered with a solemn expression. Oh, may I know what treasures fellow Daoist Meng Xuanzi needs? Feel free to ask us. Many immortal emperors of the human race said. There were also some immortal emperors who remained silent and looked at Meng Xuanzi quietly. Meng Xuanzi hesitated for a moment and then cupped his fists at the 2 female emperors. I need to borrow the Fu Li Bone Umbrella of the Zifu Academy and the 3rd Infusion Pearl of the Lost World Palace. I wonder if the 2 of you are willing to lend them to me? As soon as Meng Xuanzi's voice fell, a few gasps could be heard from the crowd. The rest of the immortal emperors also wore solemn expressions. After all, the Fu Li Bone Umbrella and the 3rd Infusion Pearl that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow were considered extremely precious treasures among the emperors of the 4 heavens. The Fu Li Bone Umbrella was one of the most precious treasures of the Zifu Academy. Now it was in the hands of immortal Emperor Zhongjia. The 3rd Infusion Pearl was the most precious treasure of the Lost World Palace. It was also known as the heaven-suppressing treasure of the Northern Heaven. There were originally 10 of them. The first one was the weakest, and the 10th one was the strongest. Among them, the 10th one was already destroyed for some reason. The 9 pearls were currently in the custody of the emperors of the Lost World Palace. The 3rd pearl was in the hands of the old ancestor of the Western Palace of the Lost World Palace. Upon hearing that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow these 2 treasures, immortal Emperor Zhongjia stroked her hair with a calm expression and looked at Meng Xuanzi inquisitively. The Fu Li Bone Umbrella was one of the most precious treasures of the Zifu Academy. It was not something that could be lent out easily. However, this matter was more important. If it was really necessary, she would not be stingy with her treasures. The old ancestor of the Western Palace of the Lost World Palace was an old woman in gray. She was the master of the palace master, Yuan Yao. Upon hearing that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow the 3rd Infusion Pearl, the old ancestor of the Western Palace immediately turned hostile despite her friendship with Meng Xuanzi. Meng Xuanzi, if you were to borrow any other treasure, this old woman would naturally lend it to you without hesitation. However, the Infusion Pearl is extremely important. If I were to lend it to you and something were to happen to it, this old woman would likely be at a disadvantage when competing with the Eastern Palace and Northern Palace in the future. This old woman will definitely not lend this treasure to you. The old ancestor of the Lost World Palace had always been an unreasonable person. Even though she had a good relationship with Meng Xuanzi, she could still turn hostile in a fit of anger. Meng Xuanzi smiled bitterly. He knew that the old ancestor of the Western Palace and the old ancestor of the Western Palace would not lend him their treasures so easily. He did not insist and only glanced at the Tongtian ancient emperor helplessly. With his reputation, it was not enough for him to borrow their treasures. However, if it was the Tongtian ancient emperor, the ancient passage is of great importance. No accidents can happen. Both of you, lend your treasures to Meng Xuanzi. If anything happens to the treasures, I will take responsibility. There were a total of 28 constellation ancient emperors in the Four Oceans sect. The Tongtian ancient emperor was the first ancient emperor of the Four Oceans sect, and the leader of the sect. If he spoke, no one would dare to disrespect him, except for the secret race. Since the Tongtian ancient emperor had spoken, the Palm Tribulation immortal emperor did not say anything else. She tore open her natal world and took out a purplish-black light. She did not know what it was and directly handed it to Meng Xuanzi. The old ancestor of the Western Palace had an ugly expression on her face. She was not as generous as the Palm Tribulation immortal emperor, and was reluctant to lend her treasures. However, the Tongtian ancient emperor had already spoken. Even if she didn't want to, she didn't dare to refuse. Clenching her teeth, she tore open her life interface and took out a black pearl. It emitted a blinding light, as dazzling as a small sun. The third infusion pearl was not black. Only the third infusion pearl was black, because it was tainted by the devil will. In addition to the third infusion pearl, I still have the sixth and seventh infusion pearls. The third infusion pearl is not as good as the other two pearls. It had fallen into the hands of the devil race in the ancient devil abyss, and was tainted by the devil will. It is not a problem to lend this pearl to Meng Xuanzi since the Tongtian ancient emperor is here. Forget it. The old ancestor of the Western Palace had a gloomy expression. She handed the third infusion pearl to Meng Xuanzi and said, "Old man Meng Xuanzi, the third infusion pearl is now yours. You must use it carefully. The treasure has been given to you. Fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi, please use your technique quickly. This old man wants to see the origin of that nameless cultivator," the Tongtian ancient emperor urged. Meng Xuanzi nodded and summoned the two treasures in his hand. They turned into rays of light and entered the steel. Then he sat cross-legged on the ground and murmured. With the help of the two treasures, he had a 30% chance of discovering Ningfan's origin. However, it would take a lot of time for him to sense it. At the same time, the true dragon patriarch of the demon race was frowning like the Tongtian ancient emperor. He stared at the leather curtain summoned by the monster Gui. Above the curtain, there was a red figure that flashed past from time to time. It was very blurry and he couldn't see the appearance of the red figure clearly. He could only vaguely see the figure flying past. The first level of the heavenly palace, the second level, the third level, the fourth level. Now, that red figure had entered the fifth level of the heavenly palace. Strange. According to this old man's deduction, there shouldn't be a ninth immortal venerable in the current 9 heavenly palace. But this person can go all the way to the fifth level. His speed is comparable to an ancient immortal venerable. Could this person be an unforeseen event that this old man missed? The true dragon patriarch's character was more gloomy compared to the Tongtian ancient emperor. However, there was a similarity between the two of them. That was, he hated changes in his plan. His eyes turned gloomy. Then he said to the monster Gui, "Is there a way to make the projection on the curtain clearer? If this person is the 9th immortal venerable, this old man must know who he is." The monster Gui's face turned pale, and said with a wry smile, "It won't work. I've tried my best. It's too difficult to see who he is." "It doesn't matter. I'll lend this to you." The true dragon patriarch pondered for a while. Suddenly, he tore open the void and took out an illusory fog. It was in the shape of a bow. With a flick of his finger, the object was passed to the monster Gui. When the great emperors of the demon race saw the true dragon patriarch take out the object, their expressions changed drastically. If they weren't mistaken, this illusory mist was actually quintessence energy. The origin chi was the key to breaking through to the third step saint realm. There were 3 kinds of origin chi, which were the origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi. Therefore, the great emperors of the 4 heavens often called the origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi. The origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi were the key to breaking through to the third step of cultivation. Unfortunately, the amount of origin chi needed to break through to the third step was too large. One of the important reasons why there was no saint in the 4 heavens was that there was not enough origin chi. One of the important reasons why the old monsters of the 4 heavens wanted to enter the ancient passageway and enter the heaven desolate ancient realm was to obtain a large amount of origin chi and enter the third step of cultivation. If the Candle Bao's spirit was here, it would probably curse the true dragon patriarch when he took out the illusory fog. The Candle Bao's spirit had once followed the ancestral dragon to conquer the world and killed countless experts. It was rewarded by the ancestral dragon, which gave it some origin chi. Unfortunately, the current true dragon patriarch boldly refined the origin chi in the Candle Bao's spirit. That was why the Candle Bao's spirit became even weaker. If the true dragon patriarch did not take away the origin chi of the Candle Bao's spirit, with its strength, it might have killed Ning Fan on that day instead of being captured by Ning Fan. I'll lend you this origin chi. I hope that this time, you can completely reflect the appearance of that red figure. The true dragon patriarch said to the monster Gue in a deep voice. His expression contained a hint of warning. The origin chi could be devoured and refined. It could also be used to perform divine abilities. If it was used to perform divine abilities, it could greatly increase the power of those divine abilities. If it was devoured and refined, it could greatly improve a cultivator's cultivation base. The monster Gue's face turned pale again. She understood the true dragon patriarch's warning. She definitely would not dare to devour and refine the origin chi without permission. She only dared to use the origin chi to perform divine abilities. The true dragon patriarch would not ask her how much she used. As for the remaining origin chi, she still had to return it to him. If she dared to devour even a little bit of the origin chi without permission, she was afraid that she would immediately incur the wrath of the true dragon patriarch. With the help of the origin chi, I will definitely be able to project the appearance of that red figure. The monster Gue gave the true dragon patriarch a promise. Then, she immediately sat on the ground with her legs crossed and performed hand seals to perform her technique. While the human emperors were trying to investigate Ning Fan, the demon race was also doing the same. Ning Fan was unaware of all of this. At this moment, he was running at full speed on the 5th floor of the Heavenly Palace. There was not a single person on the 5th floor. According to Ning Fan's estimation, he probably would not encounter any thought-severing old monsters at his current height. If he were to encounter someone, it would be either the ancient immortal venerables of the human race or the barbarian ancestors. It seems like I'm about to catch up with the 7th ancestor. When he reached the 5th floor of the Heavenly Palace, he could not help but slow down even though his strength had increased tremendously. The aura force of each palace was enough to make the ancient immortal venerables look askance. Even though Ning Fan could defeat all the thought-severing old monsters in the desolate world where the immortal prohibition force was active, the difference between his strength and that of the ancient immortal venerables was like heaven and earth. After all, the strength of the ancient immortal venerables was not suppressed by the immortal prohibition force. It took Ning Fan 10 breaths to break through the first palace of the 5th floor. It took him 15 breaths to break through the second palace. When he reached the 10th palace, it took him 50 breaths to clear it. The further he progressed, the more difficult it became. When he reached the 20th palace and above, he actually felt that it was difficult for him to move an inch forward. Even though his current strength was much stronger than the thought-severing old monsters here, he was still too far away from the ancient immortal venerables. The other ancient immortal venerables could easily break through the 5th floor of the Heavenly Palace and enter the 6th floor. However, he could not do that. So I can only rely on the power of my magic treasures? Ning Fan's eyes flickered. He took out the memory-severing Dao sword and placed it around him to protect himself. He tried to use the power of his magic treasure to resist the aura force of the 9 heavenly palaces and increase his speed of advancement. Unfortunately, as soon as the memory-severing Dao sword appeared, it was shattered into bits of purple chi by the aura force of the 9 heavenly palaces. It could not withstand the aura force of this place at all. The memory-severing Dao sword was a Dao weapon. Although its form was shattered, it was not destroyed. However, it could not help Ning Fan to clear the palaces because its current level was not high enough. With a wave of his hand, Ning Fan took out a few 5 Nirvana and 6 Nirvana-acquired magic treasures. However, these magic treasures could not help him withstand the aura force of this place either. If I can take out the steel of sun and moon from the profound Een world, it will certainly be able to withstand the aura force of this place with its innate power, allowing me to enter the 6th floor of the Heavenly Palace with ease. Unfortunately, My cultivation base is not high enough. I can't take it out from the profoundine world. Even though that purple gourd is an innate item, it isn't a true innate treasure after all. I can't use it to withstand the aura force of this place. As for the other magic treasures, their levels aren't high enough to help me catch up to the 7th ancestor. As expected, this is the only thing that I can use. Ningfan suddenly moved forward. Immediately, dozens of 6-colored and 7-colored arrow shadows flew out from his body. Ningfan only had one 7-colored arrow left. However, he still had many 6-colored arrows. In the past, Ningfan's strength was only enough to shoot 3 6-colored arrows at the same time. Even so, he could already injure the barbarian ancestor who was at the immortal venerable realm. Now Ningfan's strength had improved greatly. According to his estimation, it would not be difficult for him to shoot 5 consecutive arrows at the same time. If he shoots 5 arrows at the same time, he was afraid that it would be enough to severely injure the barbarian ancestor. Even though these 7-colored arrows were not true magic treasures, and were just arrows condensed from the incense flames of slaughter, they immediately helped Ningfan block most of the aura force of the palaces. Ningfan felt the aura force on his body lighten. With that, he could once again climb to the upper floor of the heavenly palace at an extremely fast speed. When he took out the 7-colored arrows, he naturally took out the bow spirit of the candle bow as well. In the past, the bow spirit of the candle bow helped Ningfan kill the barbarian ancestor. However, until today, Ningfan still did not lend the candle bow his purple gourd. Logically speaking, the bow spirit of the candle bow should be full of complaints. With its talkative personality, it would probably nag incessantly as soon as Ningfan summons it out. However, when Ningfan took out the bow spirit of the candle bow today, it did not say a single word. It was as quiet as an obedient child. Oh, has this bow spirit changed its personality today? It actually didn't nag me anymore. Ningfan was slightly surprised, but his eyes were filled with curiosity. The bow spirit of the candle bow was still as quiet as before. At this moment, it naturally would not divert its attention to talk to Ningfan. It sensed its own opportunity. It found a chance to escape from Ningfan's evil clutches. Soon. That old bastard Ao Qinggu actually used this item. Great. This is really great. The bow spirit of the candle bow tried its best to suppress the urge to laugh wildly in its heart. It did not want Ningfan to see the changes in its mind. That Ao Qinggu is the descendant of the ancestral dragon, and the current leader of the true dragon clan in vain. In the past, he actually dared to take away my origin chi. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been captured by this malefic star, and I wouldn't have been unable to break free from the seal that he planted on me. The bow spirit of the candle bow was filled with resentment. However, when it thought of the future, it began to beam with joy and become extremely wretched. I didn't expect that this stupid old man still hasn't refined my origin chi. This time, he even used this item to cast a technique in order to scheme against this little malefic star. If it was someone else, they certainly wouldn't be able to sense it. However, that origin chi came from me. I can feel it. It's very close. Very close. Wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. I will certainly have the chance to take back this origin chi. Once I do, it will be easy for me to break free from the seal and escape from the evil clutches of that malefic star. From then on, I can go anywhere in the world. I can have all the beauties in the world. I can be as lonely as snow. This old man is finally going to be free. Once I escape from the evil clutches of this malefic star, I will definitely make him beg for death. Well, it's better not to do that. It's never a good thing to encounter this malefic star. If I manage to escape, it's better to keep a low profile and run away quietly. Yes, that's how it should be. The bow spirit of the candle bow was secretly devising an escape plan. When Ningfan arrived at the 33rd palace of the 5th floor with the help of the incense arrows, the sea of clouds suddenly separated into 2 sides. At the same time, 3 rays of light formed 3 different colored clouds and swept towards Ningfan. In the northern clouds, one could vaguely see the huge shadow of a purplish-black bone umbrella. In the eastern clouds, one could vaguely see a black sun that was slowly rising. In the southern clouds, There were clouds of mist that seemed to be both real and illusory. It was constantly emitting a heavy aura that could make any cultivator who saw it feel solemn. Sure enough, it's this old man's origin chi. But why is there someone else casting a technique on this malefic star? There won't be any accidents, right? The Bao spirit of the candle Bao suddenly became nervous. He finally found a chance to escape, and he didn't want to miss it. This is. Just as Ning Fan walked out of the 33rd palace and stepped on the ancient bluestone path, his expression suddenly changed, and he raised his head. North, east, and south. 3 kinds of vast chi were crazily coming towards him from 3 directions. A huge pressure suddenly pressed down on him. Even with Ning Fan's current cultivation base, he felt a sharp pain in his chest and immediately retreated frantically. Only after retreating 10 steps on the ancient bluestone path did he manage to stabilize his body. However, it was still difficult for him to withstand the pressure from 3 directions at the same time. At this moment, the human race and demon race simultaneously activated their divine abilities to investigate Ning Fan. They wanted to find out the origin of Ning Fan. Someone is spying on me. Ning Fan's heart immediately had a feeling of being spied on, and his face sank. Chapter 919. 3 powerful chi surged towards him from the north, the east, and the south. With Ning Fan's second heavenly being realm eyesight, he could naturally sense the extremely sharp probing power from the 3 chi. He could even vaguely sense that there was a supreme treasure hidden in each of them. He knew that there was a powerful cultivator outside the savage desolation ancient territory, using a divine ability to probe him. Moreover, judging from the scale of the attack, it was highly possible that the cultivator who was probing him was an immortal emperor, a peak expert in this world. As Ning Fan's thoughts raced, the 3 incomparably powerful chi instantly approached him. The sea of clouds in the north and the east suddenly shone with golden rays, and countless golden threads were reflected from within. As soon as those golden threads appeared, they immediately entangled Ning Fan. The billowing aura of an immortal emperor descended from the sky. At this moment, Ning Fan could only feel the bones in his body making cracking sounds, as if they were about to be crushed. Under the tremendous chi, when the countless golden threads approached him, he actually felt that he could not move an inch. It was as if he could only let himself be bound by them. This was the power of an immortal emperor. Even if Ning Fan's current mid-true crossing realm, and his current minor accomplishment in Calamity Blood, he still could not withstand the power of an immortal emperor's magic technique. The gap between the 2 of them was like a chasm. Ning Fan naturally understood the huge gap between him and an immortal emperor. He could also feel that the 3 chi just wanted to probe his background and not take his life. However, it was impossible for him to not resist and allow them to probe his identity. Ning Fan performed a hand seal, and the numerous Joss flame arrows that were hovering around him immediately emitted 6 and 7 colored rays of light and shot towards the front. The golden thread in front of him suddenly transformed into a withered, old golden hand that grabbed the many Joss flame arrows. The force of the grab contained a trace of a mortal emperor's might. Ordinary magic treasures could not resist it at all. The moment the Joss flame arrows were caught by the golden hand, they immediately flew back to Ning Fan's side with a slightly weakened chi. Only the Joss flame arrows were not repelled by the golden hand. Instead, they suddenly charged forward and directly penetrated the golden hand. Even the Joss flame arrows that were locked onto Ning Fan were broken. An old man's voice was heard from the sky. It was Meng Xuanzi who was outside the savage desolation. He hadn't expected that he wouldn't be able to uncover the identity of this mysterious cultivator, even after using his full strength and the power of the treasure. Meng Xuanzi had no intention of harming this mysterious cultivator. He merely wanted to find out his identity and complete the mission given by the ancient emperor of Tongtian. He smiled faintly and performed a technique that separated realms again. The chi gap in front of Ning Fan instantly closed up. More golden threads turned into huge hands and grabbed at Ning Fan. Layers of golden threads were like an ocean, sealing all of Ning Fan's escape routes. At the same time, Meng Xuanzi's voice transmission resounded above the sea of clouds. "Little fellow, don't be afraid. This old man is only investigating your identity. I won't harm you, so there's no need to be so nervous. This voice carried a heartfelt kindness, and it was related to Meng Xuanzi's character. Meng Xuanzi was a sovereign celestial emperor. His status in the North Heaven Celestial Empire was extremely respected, but he was also very easygoing. Ordinary immortal emperors were proud and arrogant people. It was extremely difficult for ordinary cultivators to meet an immortal emperor. However, Meng Xuanzi was different. He opened a forum on the Black Tortoise planet and taught everyone regardless of background. Any cultivator could go to the Black Tortoise planet to listen to his Tao lecture. He had always been tolerant towards the cultivators of the younger generation, and often helped them. When Ningfan first cultivated the Tao, he had accidentally displayed the Spirit Wander 10,000 Li ability. A trace of his spirit sense reached the northern heaven, but he couldn't retrieve it. He was about to get lost in the starry sky, and it was extremely dangerous. At that time, it was Meng Xuanzi who helped him and saved him. Later on, Ningfan killed a mortal and divine transformation realm cultivator, and received a lot of help from Meng Xuanzi. All the signs proved that Meng Xuanzi was indeed a good person that was hard to come by in the cultivation world. When Ningfan heard Meng Xuanzi's voice, he felt that it sounded a little familiar. When he tried to recall, how could he not know that the person who was performing the technique on him was immortal Emperor Meng Xuanzi of the Northern Heaven who had helped him before? After a bitter smile, Ningfan shook his head. Even though Meng Xuanzi had helped him before, he really did not want to expose his identity at this moment. The six-colored incense flame arrow could not go against those huge golden hands. Ningfan had no choice but to control the last seven-colored incense flame arrow to pierce through those huge hands. However, those golden threads were endless. It was impossible for him to break out of their encirclement. This little fellow is really stubborn. Meng Xuanzi smiled and shook his head. Seeing that he could not restrain Ningfan with his own strength, he immediately formed hand seals with all 10 of his fingers, and controlled the Fu Li Bony umbrella and the third infusion pearl to press down on Ningfan. The Fu Li Bony umbrella was one of the magic treasures that guarded the Purple Mansion Academy. It was extremely powerful. The third infusion pearl was the heaven-guarding magic treasure of the Northern Heaven Lost World Palace. Its power was even more extraordinary. From Meng Xuanzi's point of view, it shouldn't be difficult for him to restrain Ningfan and find out his background with the power of these two magic treasures. However, what happened next shocked him. He saw the two magic treasures descending from the sky with an overwhelming aura, as if they wanted to directly suppress Ningfan to the ground. Their ferocity soared to the sky. However, when the two magic treasures descended 100 zhang above Ningfan's head, they suddenly began to tremble for some unknown reason. The two treasures continued to descend. When they were 10 zhang away from Ningfan, their power actually decreased greatly. It was as if Ningfan was some kind of ancient ferocious beast that they did not dare to approach at all. This is strange. What kind of ability did this little fellow use? It actually stopped these two treasures from descending. Meng Xuanzi said with a face full of astonishment. At this moment, Ningfan raised his head and looked at the two trembling treasures above his head. His eyes were extremely strange. Previously, he was too far away and could not see clearly. Now, however, he was only 10 zhang away from the two treasures. He could clearly see that the two magic treasures that Meng Xuanzi used were actually these two items. If he was not mistaken, the bone umbrella was obviously refined from the remains of a Fu Li demon ancestor. However, this Fu Li demon ancestor seemed to only have 2 droplets of ancestral blood when it was alive. Therefore, when it faced Ningfan now, the bone umbrella instinctively felt fear. It was because Ningfan was also a Fu Li demon ancestor, and he had more ancestral blood. Ningfan was once a Fu Li demon ancestor who had 4 droplets of ancestral blood. Because he had burned 1 droplet of Fu Li ancestral blood, he only had 3 droplets left now. Even so, the aura force of the Fu Li demon ancestor in his body was far stronger than the Fu Li bone umbrella. It was not something that the umbrella could resist at all. The other magic treasure was a black pearl that looked like a miniature sun. At first glance, Ningfan did not know what it was. However, when he sensed the connection between him and the pearl, Ningfan immediately realized what a powerful magical treasure this pearl was. If he was not mistaken, This pearl was a supreme treasure that was as famous as the heaven-suppressing bell. The Een Fusion Pearl. The Een Fusion Pearl was a heaven-guarding treasure of the northern heaven immortal world. There were originally 10 of them, and they were in the hands of the northern heaven lost world palace. Among the 10 Een Fusion Pearls, the first one was the weakest while the 10th one was the strongest. However, since the 10th Een Fusion Pearl had been lost a long time ago, the Lost World Palace only had 9 Een Fusion Pearls now. Ning Fan was fortunate enough to devour a fragment of the 10th Een Fusion Pearl in the Quicksand Star region, and used it to comprehend the power of time. Therefore, his body naturally carried a trace of the 10th Pearl's chi. What Meng Xuanzi borrowed was the 3rd Een Fusion Pearl. Its ranking was far lower than the 10th Pearl. Therefore, when he sensed the trace of the 10th Pearl's chi on Ning Fan's body, he immediately became fearful. No matter how Meng Xuanzi used his abilities, the two treasures did not dare to attack Ning Fan at all. This made Meng Xuanzi puzzled and gave him a headache. Legend has it that there was a treasure called the Treasurefall coin in the ancient times. It can make magic treasures lose their power. Could it be that this young man is carrying some kind of magic treasure that can even restrain the fully skeletal umbrella and the Een Fusion Pearl? Meng Xuanzi muttered to himself. The two borrowed magic treasures were useless. In this way, no matter how strong Meng Xuanzi's abilities were, he would not be able to find out Ning Fan's background from the ancient wild region. As time goes by, it would be easy for him to be devoured by the world power of the ancient wild region. By then, even if Meng Xuanzi was an immortal emperor, he would still be injured. After pondering for a while, Meng Xuanzi sighed softly and transmitted his voice to Ning Fan. Little friend, you have a powerful ability. I can't find out anything about you. Let's just forget about this matter. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to keep the fully skeletal umbrella and the Een Fusion Pearl. However, at this moment, Ning Fan intentionally released a trace of the chi of the human race, as if he was purposely letting Meng Xuanzi detect him. A cultivator of the human race. Meng Xuanzi's eyes lit up. He withdrew his ability and magic treasures, and reported the matter to the ancient reaching heaven emperor. He could not find out Ning Fan's identity, nor his cultivation base. However, he found out that Ning Fan was a cultivator of the human race. The ancient reaching heaven sovereign's tightly knitted brows loosened. He said to the immortal emperors indifferently, "Since this mysterious cultivator is a cultivator of the human race, there's nothing to worry about. Even if this person obtains the entrance to the infinite wasteland, we can still take it slowly. It's better than falling into the hands of the demon race. However, according to my deduction, there shouldn't be a third immortal venerable of the human race in the infinite wasteland at this moment. Could this person be a member of a secret race? If so, the ancient reaching heaven's sovereign frowned again. No one knew what he was thinking about. As Meng Xuanzi withdrew his ability and magic treasures, the pressure around Ning Fan's body was instantly relieved. The massive chi that was accumulated in the north and the east was also withdrawn. All of a sudden, Ning Fan's eyes darkened. Only then did he realize that the massive chi in the south did not dissipate. Initially, he thought that Meng Xuanzi was the only one who was investigating him. Only now did he realize that there was another immortal emperor who was investigating him. Demon Sovereign Technique, Eternal Puppet. A soft and delicate voice of a lady suddenly resounded from the clouds in the south. All of a sudden, an incomparably dangerous sense of crisis immediately surged into Ning Fan's heart. In the south, the illusory fog suddenly condensed into a giant brush, and it actually drew in the empty sky with one stroke. 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes. That brush was drawn at an extremely slow speed. However, the object that was drawn appeared at an extremely fast speed. It was a giant ghost that seemed illusory and illusory. As the giant brush drew the last stroke, it directly walked out of the painting. Its body emitted an aura force that was comparable to that of a Shikong cultivator. It roared and pounced at Ning Fan. Judging from its posture, it seemed like it wanted to swallow Ning Fan into its stomach. Since it was a character in the painting, it did not seem to be restricted by the forbidden immortal power of this place. Meng Xuanzi did not use any extreme methods to investigate Ning Fan. However, this female empress seemed to be much more ruthless. If Ningfan is really swallowed by this giant ghost, the female empress would certainly find out his identity and appearance. At the same time, he would either die or be severely injured. With Ningfan's current cultivation base, he was naturally not afraid of this Shikong. He who had achieved minor accomplishment in the Calamity Blood realm was almost at the peak of the Shikong. However, for some unknown reason, the giant ghost in front of him still gave him a strong sense of crisis. The giant ghost charged forward. When it was 100 zhang away from Ningfan, it suddenly roared. Strangely, it did not make any sound at all. However, the sense of crisis in Ningfan's heart increased immensely at this moment. An invisible force suddenly crashed into his chest, not giving him any time to react. At this moment, the star-defying devil armor on Ningfan's chest automatically appeared, trying to block this invisible force. However, with just a single strike, the star-defying devil armor actually cracked. Then it exploded into pieces with a loud bang. Even 2 of the 6-colored incense fire arrows in front of him were directly broken by the roar. As for Ningfan, he coughed out blood and was forced to retreat due to the residual force of the impact. His body was also heavily injured. The strangest thing was that this injury could not be healed at all. The Black Star technique could not heal this injury. The same went for the power of pills. What kind of force is this impact force? Green light flashed in Ningfan's eyes. His second-level heavenly being realm vision immediately scanned the giant ghost. Ningfan's expression immediately changed when he saw it. The body of the giant ghost was made up of an illusory mist that Ningfan had never seen before. There was only one trace of that mist. However, the massive energy it contained was enough to make Ningfan's heart skip a beat. The giant ghost's appearance seemed ordinary, and it only had the void-abandoning cultivation base. However, if it explodes its body and ignites the illusory mist in its body, the power of the explosion would be enough to make any immortal venerables or immortal kings flee. Even an immortal emperor would not dare to face it head-on. Roar! The giant ghost roared again. This time, the sound wave of the roar was no longer invisible. Instead, it had turned into a solid black color. As the black sound wave swept across the sky, countless great Tao patterns appeared in heaven and earth. All of them were shattered. The roar of the giant ghost could even shatter the great Tao laws. I can't fight it head-on. Ningfan sucked in a breath of cold air. Perhaps even ordinary immortal emperors would not dare to face the giant ghost in front of him head-on. Ningfan was not foolish enough to fight this giant ghost head-on and face the sound wave head-on. Humans need to have the courage to overcome difficulties, but at the same time, they also need to know their limits. Ningfan tapped the ground with the tip of his feet and immediately retreated. However, at this moment, the dragon horn longbow that Ningfan had been holding in his hand suddenly broke free from his grip and dashed towards the pitch-black sound wave. Haha! It's really the primordial chi that was taken away from me in the past. Little fan, your good days are finally coming to an end. I, your grandfather, don't have to be afraid of you anymore. With these primordial chi, the seal that you planted in my body is nothing. Little fan, listen to me. From today onwards, I, the Bao Spirit, am your grandfather and your ancestor. I will no longer serve you, who plays with fire anymore. I want to pursue my own happy life. No one can stop me. Ningfan's eyes immediately narrowed. Is this candle Bao trying to betray me at this critical moment? Besides, according to the candle Bao, could it be that the illusory mist with terrifying power is actually the legendary primordial chi, nirvana chi and desolation chi? Chapter 920. Ningfan had been cultivating the Tao for many years. He was no longer the weak cultivator he was in the past. Thus, he had naturally heard quite a lot about the 3 chi of beginning, nirvana and desolate. The so-called primordial, nirvana, and desolate chi were the 3 types of chi of origin in the world. They could be swallowed and refined to increase one's cultivation base. They could also be used to cast divine abilities and increase the power of divine abilities to a terrifying level. Among them, the origin chi was of the lowest quality and the desolate chi was of the highest quality. However, even the lowest quality Genesis chi was scarce in the world. Occasionally, an ancient ruin would unearth a strand of Genesis chi, and it would definitely cause immortal emperor-level old monsters to fight for it. I didn't expect an immortal emperor to use his origin energy against me. Judging from the aura of this divine ability, the immortal emperor who summoned this giant ghost should belong to the demon race. Ning Fan's expression became extremely solemn. He already knew that the giant ghost was transformed from Shi. Hence, he did not think that he had the strength to face it head-on. According to Ning Fan's personality, once he knew that he wasn't a match for the giant ghost, he would immediately use his divine ability to escape. However, who would have thought that the Candlebow's spirit that was sealed by Ning Fan would betray him at this moment? As soon as the spirit of the Candlebow flew out of Ning Fan's palm, it immediately turned into a 7-colored rainbow and rushed towards the sound waves released by the gigantic ghost without caring about anything else. It was extremely excited. That sound was as black as ink and as vast as the sea. It was the roar of the giant ghost, relying on the power of the primordial chi. Although this giant ghost was only at the sky-rending realm, its roar was so terrifying that even an immortal emperor would have to temporarily avoid it. However, the Candlebow's bow spirit did not seem to be afraid of this sound wave at all. When it flew in front of the sound wave, it suddenly shook its body and transformed into the wretched appearance of a hunchbacked old man. It laughed out loud and raised its hand towards the vast sound wave. At the center of the sound wave, tens of thousands of rays of golden light suddenly appeared. The golden light turned into hundreds of millions of ancient demonic characters that suddenly condensed to form an extremely ancient golden mark. The mark was in the shape of a dragon, and demonic chi shot up into the sky. As soon as the mark appeared, the sea of sound dissipated with a bang. Even immortal emperors didn't dare to face this primordial energy sacred art head-on, but it was actually broken by Candlebow's palm. This old man's previous master was ancestor dragon Zhu. On account that this old man had followed him in battle for many years, he gave this old man 3 strands of Genesis energy. These 3 strands of Genesis chi had been refined by the previous master for 10,000 years, and he had secretly planted countless marks on them. As long as the imprint is not erased, this origin energy cannot harm this old man. When Lil Fan saw this sound wave, he was so scared that he turned around and ran. What a coward! I am not afraid at all. The Candlebow proudly licked its lips, chuckled and flew towards the giant ghost. The giant ghost was formed from primordial energy, and its movements were emotionless. When it saw the Candlebow flying towards it, it immediately opened its huge mouth and swallowed the Candlebow. This devouring force directly caused cracks to appear in the Tao laws within a radius of 5,000 kilometers. A mere brat dares to use this old man's origin energy? You're courting death. Seeing that the giant ghost wanted to swallow him, Candlebow's eyes were filled with disdain. His hands continuously moved, instantly forming countless demonic hand seals. Immediately, a scarlet gold dragon-shaped mark appeared on the giant ghost's body. The number of those marks increased and covered the entire body of the giant ghost. As the marks appeared one after another, Candlebow let out a cold cry and changed his hand seals. Instantly, the giant ghost, which was incomparably arrogant, immediately let out a miserable shriek, and its body directly exploded, dispersing into countless strands of mist. Candlebow then raised his hand and grabbed at the strands of mist. The mist immediately merged with each other and turned into a cloud of mist that was almost transparent. Then it slowly floated into Candlebow's hand. Haha! Lil Fan, do you see this? This is one of the 3 strands of Genesis chi that the previous master had given me. As long as I devour this strand of Genesis chi, Candlebow was extremely pleased. He raised his hand and was about to devour this strand of Genesis chi. His heart was filled with joy. As long as he successfully devours this strand of Genesis chi, his strength would certainly increase tremendously by borrowing its power. By then, the seal that Ning Fan planted in his body would not be a problem at all. He could break it by just raising his hand. However, would Ning Fan give Candlebow the chance to devour this strand of Genesis chi? Freeze! Ning Fan gently raised his hand and pointed at Candlebow with a finger. Immediately, Candlebow's entire body became immobilized. He still maintained his posture of devouring the Genesis chi with a wretched smile on his face. However, the strand of Genesis Chi could no longer enter his mouth. In the past, Ning Fan could only use this technique to freeze Candle Bao by burning his ancestral blood. Today, however, Candle Bao's body had been sealed by Ning Fan's seal. Thus, he was easily frozen by Ning Fan. Heaven freezing technique. Why is he using this technique again? This is bad. This malefic star has actually frozen me. He wants to seize my Genesis Chi. Candle Bao's heart screamed in alarm. At this moment, Ning Fan appeared in front of him like a ghost and took away the Genesis Chi from his hand. Candle Bao's escape plan had ended before it could even begin. This strand of Genesis Chi belongs to me now. Ning Fan glanced at Candle Bao, who could not move at all, and said indifferently. Originally, he was unable to defeat the giant ghost. However, he did not expect that Candle Bao actually had a way to restrain the giant ghost and seize the Genesis Chi that formed its body. Looking at the illusory Genesis Chi in his hand, Ning Fan smiled faintly. It seemed like he had picked up a bargain for nothing. This small lump of Genesis Chi was a treasure that could make immortal emperors envious. On the other side, Candle Bao immediately began to curse loudly when he saw Ning Fan snatching his Genesis Chi. Little Fan, how dare you plot against me? You are really too shameless. If you have the guts, remove the heaven freezing technique and have a fair one-on-one duel with me. As long as you return the Genesis Chi to me, I will only need 3 moves to beat you up like a dog. Little Fan, I'm warning you. Remove the heaven freezing technique now and return the Genesis Chi to me. Then I can still let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I'm going to get angry. Master. I'll still call you Master, alright? Master, please have some pity on me. This Genesis Chi was given to me by my previous master. It belongs to me. You are a respectable person with a high status. You can't steal something from a servant like me. How bad would it sound if word gets out? Just return it to me. Master, you're my biological father, alright? As long as you return the Genesis Chi to me. Ning Fan's eyes darkened. He did not want to talk nonsense with Candle Bao anymore. Of course, he would not return the Genesis Chi to Candle Bao. He raised his hand and pointed at Candle Bao, activating the seal in his body. Candle Bao immediately wailed like a pig being slaughtered. Just now, you seem to be trying to escape. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with killing intent when he looked at Candle Bao. Candle Bao was still wailing. When he suddenly saw the killing intent in Ning Fan's eyes, his heart instantly turned cold. Not good. This malefic star wants to kill me. At this moment, Candle Bao no longer cared about the ownership of the Genesis Chi. He understood that his betrayal this time had angered Ning Fan. If Candle Bao successfully swallowed the Genesis Chi and escaped, he naturally would not need to be afraid of Ning Fan. However, the problem was that his betrayal seemed to have failed. His life was in Ning Fan's hands. In the past, I captured you. The reason why I didn't kill you and destroy you was because you are still useful. Your existence is closely related to the key in the hands of the true Dragon Clan. Therefore, I spared your life. But now, I don't plan to keep you alive. The killing intent in Ning Fan's eyes suddenly skyrocketed, as if he had really decided to kill Candle Bao at this moment. Candle Bao's body immediately trembled. If it wasn't because his body was still restrained by the heaven sealing technique, he really wanted to kowtow to Ning Fan and beg for mercy. Master, you can't kill me. I'm your little Bao. I'm your loyal servant. I really didn't want to escape just now. When I saw that giant ghost bullying and humiliating Master, I couldn't take it anymore and wanted to help Master subdue the giant ghost. Yes, that's it. Master, that giant ghost's body is made of Genesis Chi. That's a good thing. That trace of Genesis Chi was originally given to me by my previous master. However, I feel that only an outstanding talent like Master is worthy to possess that trace of Genesis Chi. Master, I'll give that trace of Genesis Chi to you. I don't want it anymore. Please do me a favor and spare me this time. Ning Fan remained silent. He stared at Candle Bao coldly. The killing intent in his eyes did not diminish at all. In fact, he just wanted to scare Candle Bao. He did not really intend to kill him. If Candle Bao dies, he would not be able to use those 6 and 7 colored incense arrows anymore. These incense arrows were Ning Fan's greatest reliance in the battle against the 7th-era barbaric ancestor. Naturally, he would not kill Candlebow at this moment. However, Candlebow had betrayed him after all. It would not do if he did not teach him a lesson. That was why Ning Fan purposely released his killing intent, as if he wanted to kill Candlebow. In the end, it was just to scare Candlebow and teach him a lesson. I'm finished. This fiend is so stubborn. He really wants to kill me. Previously, he wanted to kill me after he obtained that inferior innate realm bow spirit. If it wasn't for my quick-wittedness, I would have died. This time, I'm afraid I really can't escape from this calamity. The great joys and sorrows of life came too quickly. Candlebow was filled with regret now. How could he be so foolish to think that he could escape from Ning Fan's hands with just a trace of Genesis Chi? Ning Fan had so many tricks up his sleeves. It wasn't like he had never seen them before. In the past, he did not have the ability to seal it, but he was still subdued by Ning Fan by burning his ancestral blood. That's right. Ancestral blood. There seems to be a few drops of ancestral blood in this fiend's body. Even if I really devour this trace of Genesis Chi and break the seal, I won't be able to completely refine it within a short period of time. If he goes crazy and burns his ancestral blood, I will still be captured by him again. I can't escape. It turns out that I couldn't escape from this fiend's clutches from the beginning. This fiend is a monster who can build a bridge in the true illusion river. He is the first person to do so since ancient times. Who can be compared to him? If he wants to imprison me, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape even if I run for another billion years. If I don't run, I won't be killed. If I don't get killed, I will have to follow this fiend for the rest of my life. However, what's wrong with following this fiend? With this fiend's potential, his achievements in the future will certainly not be lower than ancestral dragon Zhu Li. If I follow him, I will definitely benefit greatly in the future. Sigh. It's too late to regret now. This fiend really wants to kill me. The more Candlebow thought about it, the more regretful he felt. The more he thought about it, the more disheartened he became. If the heavens gave him a chance to start over, he would never choose to betray and run away. Looking at Zhu Gong's despairing and regretful expression, Ning Fan's killing intent decreased slightly, and he nodded with satisfaction. He had never thought of completely subduing this bow spirit. This bow spirit had a rebellious bone at the back of its head which made it difficult to subdue. Ning Fan had already seen this point clearly since a long time ago. If it wasn't because Zhu Gong still had a great use for him, Ning Fan would definitely not keep such a bow spirit by his side. He would also not tolerate Zhu Gong's betrayal. I originally wouldn't spare you for your betrayal this time. However, you have contributed greatly by helping me kill the barbaric ancestor previously. Now that your contribution has offset your mistake, I will spare your life this time. However, there won't be a next time. Ning Fan said in a deep voice. As soon as Zhu Gong heard that he would not have to die, he was naturally overjoyed. Thank you for sparing my life, Master. I promise that I will never run away again in the future. I will modify it seriously and make a new bow. Don't worry, Master. From today onwards, Master's enemy will be Zhu Gong's enemy. Where Master's sword points at, Zhu Gong will be the person that Zhu Gong will kill. Master's fart will be the air that Zhu Gong breathes. Master's saliva will be enough. I don't like people who talk too much. Ning Fan said with a frown. Yes. Zhu Gong, shut up now. Zhu Gong's heart shuddered. He no longer dared to flatter Ning Fan. He thought to himself that his flattery skills were indeed not good enough. He still had to practice more. This current master was indeed harder to serve than his former master. Seeing that Zhu Gong was obedient, Ning Fan lifted the heaven sealing technique on it with a point of his finger. Immediately, the bow turned back into the form of a dragon horn longbow and flew back to Ning Fan's hand. Congratulations, Master, for obtaining a trace of origin Qi. By the way, Master might not know that this trace of origin Qi contains the imprints that Little Bao's former master left behind. There are 30 million of them in total. If you don't refine all of them, Zhu Gong said with a smile, trying to curry favor with Ning Fan. I know. Let's talk about the origin Qi later. With my current cultivation level, If I don't refine all of the imprints, I won't be able to use this origin chi for a while. Ning Fan waved his hand and kept the origin chi into the profound Yin world, keeping it in his immortal cave. Being in such close contact with it, he could feel the violent energy within this mass of origin chi. It was not something that he could control at all with his current strength. As soon as the giant ghost died, the second immortal emperor's investigation naturally failed. The sea of clouds in the surroundings also gradually returned to normal. Ning Fan did not continue to stay in this place. He walked along the ancient bluestone path and headed towards the next palace. In front of him was the 21st palace on the 5th floor. With Ning Fan's current strength, it should have been difficult for him to move an inch after entering this palace. However, now that he had summoned so many Joss flame arrows, almost 90% of the aura force of the 21st palace was neutralized by them. The remaining 10% of aura force could no longer hinder Ning Fan's footsteps. In less than half a breath's time, Ning Fan had already rushed out of the 21st palace and was heading upwards at full speed. At the same time, outside the ancient wild region, the clan leader of the True Dragon clan, Ao Qinggu, was glaring angrily at Yao Meng, who had failed to cast her technique. Yao Meng lowered her head, feeling extremely nervous. She did not dare to look at the furious clan leader of the True Dragon clan at all. She was groaning inwardly. Not only did she fail to project Ning Fan's true appearance after using her full strength, she even lost the trace of origin chi that the clan leader of the True Dragon clan had given to her. How am I going to deal with this? All the great emperors of the demon races at the scene were looking at Yao Meng. Some of them were shocked, some of them were surprised, some of them were gloating, while some of them were deep in thought. However, none of them had expected that the origin chi would be snatched away. From their point of view, the mysterious person who was being investigated was at most an immortal venerable immortal. Logically speaking, a mere immortal venerable immortal would not have the ability to snatch a treasure from an immortal emperor. Moreover, the treasure was the origin chi. Logically speaking, an immortal venerable immortal would not be able to control the origin chi at all, let alone snatch it. How did that mysterious person snatch the origin chi? Who is this person? Could it be that his cultivation base is not at the immortal venerable immortal realm, but higher? Otherwise, why would the origin chi be snatched away? Even the clan leader of the True Dragon clan could not understand why the origin chi would be snatched away. He had extracted the origin chi from the candlebow's body. However, he had kept it and never used it. Therefore, he did not know that the origin chi contained the mark of the ancestral dragon Zhu Li, which could be easily taken away by the candlebow. Yao Meng, continue to use your divine ability and project the 9 heavens imperial court. As for that mysterious person, you don't have to investigate him. Leave him to Ao Xian and Du Longzi. The clan leader's expression darkened. He took out a golden jade slip and crushed it. At the same time, in the 9 heavens imperial court, Ao Xian and Du Longzi suddenly felt something and were stunned. At this moment, they received an order from the clan leader of the True Dragon clan. One of them must go to the lower heavens to investigate everything. If possible, take back the origin chi. The origin chi was the key for immortal emperors to step into the 3rd step. If possible, the clan leader did not want to lose this origin chi. Let me go. Old ancestor Du Longzi's eyes darkened. He did not continue to move forward. Instead, he suddenly turned around and returned to the lower level. His current position was not as advanced as Ao Xian. The two of them worked together. Ao Xian would continue to advance to the top level, while he would complete the clan leader's task and head to the lower level. Chapter 921. Currently, immortal venerables were at least on the 7th floor. Currently, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was about to reach the 8th floor while Ning Fan was still on the 5th floor. Both of them were too far away from each other. Even with old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's immortal venerables cultivation base, it would take him a lot of time to descend from the 7th floor to the 5th floor. In order to complete the clan leader's order, I have no choice but to go to the lower floor. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon shook his head and turned towards the direction of the lower floor. Currently, there were a total of 8 immortal venerables in the 9 heavens imperial court. For barbaric ancestors, 2 immortal venerables of the demon race and 2 human immortal venerables. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was originally at the 6th place, just below the 4 barbaric ancestors and Ao Xian. When Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon turned around and returned, he concealed his qi, making it almost silent. However, he was still noticed by Lu Ha and Miao Yin, who were behind him. Strange. Why didn't this old man Poisonous Dragon go up but down instead? Doesn't he want to go to the top floor to fight for the ancient passage? Lu Ha and Miao Yin were puzzled, but they could not figure it out. Thus, they stopped thinking about it, and continued to move upwards. When Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon turned around, Ning Fan continued to climb upwards, trying to catch up to the 7th barbaric ancestor, and take back the souls of the 1 million barbarians. With the power of the Joss flame arrows, Ning Fan moved forward at full speed. Each palace could only trap him for less than half a breath. When he reached the 52nd palace on the 5th floor, his eyes narrowed slightly as he felt the vast aura force coming from the palace. The 52nd palace is the 496th palace that I have passed through along the way. After 396, it is indeed 496. The aura force in the 52nd palace was a few times stronger than the previous palaces. Even if Ning Fan had the protection of the Joss flame arrows, he still felt his breathing become heavy when he entered the palace. He did not say much. He endured the aura force and walked out of the 52nd palace. It took him 10 breaths in total. After passing through the 52nd palace, his body produced a lot of barbarian blood which was devoured by the Jie blood. The improvement of the Jie blood was negligible, but Ning Fan did not mind it. From the 52nd palace onwards, the aura force of each palace became heavier and heavier. Ning Fan needed 10 breaths to pass through each palace. This speed was under the protection of the Joss flame arrow. Without the protection of the Joss flame arrow, with his current cultivation base, he would definitely be sent flying by the pressure. With his cultivation, it was too difficult for him to ascend to a higher level in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. However, since he had decided to fight against the 7th Berserker ancestor and take back the Berserker's soul, he would not turn back no matter how difficult the journey was. The 53rd palace, the 54th palace, the 55th palace. Ning Fan walked all the way to the 56th palace. The corresponding number of this palace was 500. In this palace, Ning Fan also did not face the 5th damage tribulation. However, he did not mind it at all. The further he went, the harder it was to move forward. After an unknown period of time, he finally walked out of the 111th palace and reached the highest point of the 5th floor of the Heavenly Imperial Court. This time, not only was the voice of the stone statue not heard, even the teleportation formation that should have appeared did not appear. I can only rely on my own abilities to tear apart the sky and ascend to the 6th floor. Ning Fan suddenly flipped his hand. The memory-severing Dao sword that was glowing with purple qi directly appeared in his hand. He slashed the sword at the sky, creating a gap at the peak of the sea of clouds. Then he leaped into it. After going through a series of turbulent void currents, Ning Fan appeared in the 6th floor of the Heavenly Imperial Court. The environment of this floor was completely different from the previous 5 floors. The clouds and mist in the sky were all red. Scarlet lightning bolts kept striking down from the sky. The rumbling sounds were so deafening that it hurt one's eardrums. However, Ning Fan did not have the mood to enjoy the scenery here because as soon as he entered the 6th floor, he was immediately locked on by a vast killing intent. On the platform where he was standing, a purple-haired old man with dragon horns was standing proudly 100 zhang away. It seemed like he had been waiting here for a long time. It was actually Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. You've finally arrived at the 6th floor. I've been waiting for a long time. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was originally closing his eyes and pretending to be asleep. As if he wanted to say something to Ning Fan, he slowly opened his eyes. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Ning Fan's ghost-faced silver-haired appearance. Instantly, his eyes widened and his face was filled with disbelief. He cried out involuntarily. How could it be you? Could it be that you've seized the primordial qi of the clan leader? Impossible. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon received the clan leader's order to go to the lower floor to find a mysterious immortal venerable, and take back his primordial chi. Along the way, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon had imagined various scenarios where he would encounter that mysterious immortal venerable. However, he did not expect that the mysterious immortal venerable that the clan leader mentioned was actually Ning Fan. The clan leader could only blame the fact that the projection of Ning Fan was too vague. Thus, the clan leader of the True Dragon clan could not see Ning Fan's ghost-faced silver-haired appearance clearly. Since old ancestor Poisonous Dragon received the clan leader's order to rush to the lower floor, it was even more impossible for him to know that the person he was looking for was Ning Fan. Ghost-faced silver-haired. Ghost-faced silver-haired. How could old ancestor Poisonous Dragon forget Ning Fan's appearance? How could he forget it? After the initial shock, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's eyes immediately surged with killing intent. Without saying a word, he directly took out a ruler-type magic treasure that shone with silver light, and swung it at Ning Fan's head. As soon as the silver ruler soared into the sky, it immediately multiplied into 10,000. All of a sudden, countless silhouettes of the silver ruler changed into raindrops and fell on Ning Fan's head. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon could not understand how Ning Fan was able to ascend to the 6th floor with his current cultivation base. He also could not understand how Ning Fan became the mysterious immortal venerable that the clan leader mentioned and seized his primordial chi. However, it did not matter to him. After he kills Ning Fan and searches his soul and memories, he would naturally find out everything. That silver ruler was a 12 Nirvana post-celestial Nirvana magic treasure. Its name was Demon Essence Ruler. With old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's immortal venerable cultivation base at full force, only immortal venerables could withstand the attack of this treasure head-on. Not only did this Demon Essence Ruler possess great destructive power, but it also possessed a special ability called Bloodline Suppression. Any kind of ability that requires the activation of bloodline power could be forcefully interrupted by the Demon Essence Ruler. In order to capture Ning Fan, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon had purposely borrowed this treasure from an immortal venerable of the True Dragon clan. In old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's eyes, Ning Fan was just a junior whose cultivation base was around the void-rending realm. In the past, if it wasn't for the two immortal venerables, Lu He and Miao Yan, who had repeatedly intervened, he would have already captured and killed Ning Fan. Even though Ning Fan's cultivation base was not high, there was still something about him that made him wary. What this kid needs to fear the most is the ancestral bloodline of the Fu Li race. Back then, he ignited his ancestral blood and took me by surprise, snatching the ancestral bow from my hands. That was the greatest shame of my life. I remember that this child burned a drop of ancestral blood in the past, and still had 3 drops of ancestral blood in his body. If that kid goes crazy again today, and burns the remaining 3 drops of ancestral blood, I'm afraid that I won't be able to kill him even if I use my full strength. Fortunately, this old man borrowed the Demon Essence Ruler. With this ruler, this child can forget about burning his blood. Old ancestor Dulong's eyes became more and more ruthless. The way he looked at Ning Fan was like a dead man. From old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's point of view, this Demon Essence Ruler had a great ability that could suppress one's bloodline. If Ning Fan ignites his blood, he would be suppressed in an instant and the process of igniting his blood would be interrupted. If Ning Fan didn't ignite his blood, he wouldn't be able to withstand an attack from a 12 Nirvana magical treasure with his weak cultivation. 12 Nirvana post-celestial treasures, huh? As soon as Ning Fan entered the 6th floor, he was sneakily attacked by old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Although he was slightly surprised, he did not panic at all. Along the way, it was not Ning Fan's first time fighting against an immortal venerate. Without saying a word, he patted his sword pouch. Immediately, 5 rays of sword light flew out from the sword pouch, and went against the rain of innumerable feet in the sky. Bang! 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 The 5 rays of sword light were none other than the 5 rain immortal swords that Ning Fan had refined for many years. Among them, the 4-minute swords were only at the 5th Nirvana grade of the post-celestial treasures. Besides, they were already severely damaged in the previous battle. At this moment, when they collided with the rain of innumerable feet, the 4 swords let out a whimper at the same time, and were crushed into powder. To cultivators of the Dujin realm, 5th Nirvana post-celestial treasures were considered as top-notch equipment. However, in front of a 12th Nirvana magic treasure like the Demon Essence Ruler, a 5th Nirvana magic treasure was obviously not powerful enough. Seeing that the 4-minute swords were all destroyed, Ningfan sighed inwardly. However, he did not say anything and continued to control the last immortal sword with all his might to resist the rain of innumerable feet. The last immortal sword was naturally the separation and reunion sword of the 12th Nirvana grade. With this sword in hand, Ningfan actually managed to withstand the rain of innumerable feet in just a short period of time. 12th Nirvana Immortal Sword. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon narrowed his eyes and sneered. I didn't expect a junior like you to actually have a magic treasure of the 12th Nirvana grade. Even immortal venerates like me don't have many magic treasures of this grade. Unfortunately, the grade of this treasure is too high for you. With your current cultivation base, I'm afraid you can only exert a portion of the sword's power. I, on the other hand, am different. I can exert 120% of the Demon Essence Ruler's power. Your sword is no match for my treasured ruler. As Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon spoke, he suddenly changed his hand seals. The rain of innumerable feet immediately dispersed, revealing the true form of the Demon Essence Ruler. That Demon Essence Ruler suddenly shook its body and turned into a 1,000 zhang large silver demonic dragon. It swallowed the separation and reunion sword in one gulp. From today onwards, this sword belongs to me. Humph. If you still have other magic treasures of the 12th Nirvana grade, just use them all and give them to me. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon smiled coldly with an extremely disdainful expression. Even though he said so, he did not think that Ningfan still had other magic treasures of the 12th Nirvana grade. It was already rare for an ordinary immortal venerable to have a 12th Nirvana grade immortal treasure. From Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's point of view, Ningfan was not an ancient immortal venerable. Having a 12th Nirvana grade magic treasure was already very rare. The probability of him having a second one was really not high. As a matter of fact, Ningfan still had one more 12th Nirvana grade magic treasure. In the past, Ningfan obtained the 3 treasures of Immortal King 6 desires. Among them, the Desire Liberation Pearl was already destroyed. The Separation and Reunion Sword was refined by Ningfan into one of the 5 Rain Swords. There was another treasure which was also at the 12th Nirvana grade. It was the Sky Burning Fan, which could activate corpse fire to hurt others. Only those who possessed the bloodline of corpse devils could use the Sky Burning Fan. In the past, Ningfan did not have enough magic power. Thus, he had never used this fan. However, now that his cultivation base had broken through to the mid-true crossing realm, and his tribulation blood had also reached the minor accomplishment realm, he could still exert a portion of the Sky Burning Fan's power. Ningfan naturally understood that the difference between his cultivation base and Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragons was just too huge. Even if they both used 12th Nirvana grade magic treasures, the power he could exert would definitely not be as strong as Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragons. Theoretically, he would probably not be able to hurt Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon at all if he used the Sky Burning Fan to attack him. However, as a matter of fact, the Sky Burning Fan was one of the 3 treasures which made Immortal King 6 Desires famous. Its most powerful aspect was not to hurt others but to trick others. You want to take my magic treasure? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Ningfan snorted coldly. He flipped his hand and a red light flashed. Then, a huge palm leaf fan which was entirely red appeared in his hand. As soon as the fan appeared, the temperature of heaven and earth immediately rose by a few degrees. Indistinctly, the Tao of fire was flowing on the surface of the fan. Another 12th Nirvana grade magic treasure. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's eyes immediately burned with passion. He even felt a little jealous of Ningfan, who was a junior. He himself only had one 12th Nirvana grade magic treasure. Including the Demon Essence Ruler that he borrowed, he only had 2 12th Nirvana grade magic treasures in total. Ningfan was just a junior who was not even at the thought fragmentation realm. Yet he actually had 2 12th Nirvana grade magic treasures. It really made Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon feel a little unbalanced. The fiery red palm leaf fan in front of him was obviously not an ordinary item. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's heart throbbed. As long as he kills Ning Fan, this treasured fan would naturally belong to him. This treasure will also belong to me. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon sneered and pointed at the sky. The demon essence ruler that transformed into a gigantic silver dragon immediately swooped down in Ning Fan's direction. It actually wanted to swallow him along with the fan. Ning Fan's expression was emotionless. He held the candle bow in his left hand and the sky-burning fan in his right. All of his magic power and tribulation sense power flowed into the fan. Suddenly, he raised his hand and waved it at the gigantic silver dragon. As he waved the fan, scarlet flames and smoke immediately engulfed heaven and earth. There were also countless threads of the Tao of fire that tore the vast sky apart. Before the gigantic silver dragon could get close to it, it was suddenly entangled by those threads of the Tao of fire. Its body immediately began to burn, and it let out miserable cries. Even though it was shrieking, its body did not suffer much damage. The killing intent in its eyes became more and more ferocious. Obviously, Ning Fan's action had enraged the gigantic silver dragon. Humph! Insignificant tricks. With your cultivation base, you won't be able to unleash the full power of this fan. You won't be able to hurt this dragon. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon said disdainfully. Just as his voice fell, his old eyes suddenly widened, revealing a look of disbelief. He did not know what happened to the gigantic silver dragon. Even though it was not burned by the flames, its body began to rot bit by bit. First, it was the dragon's tail. Then, half of the dragon's body began to rot, emitting a foul stench that soared into the sky. Filthy blood flowed uncontrollably. Under the rotten flesh, even the white bones were exposed. This was the sinister part of the sky-burning fan. The flames that the sky-burning fan shot out were not ordinary immortal flames, but corpse flames. To deal with the weak, the sky-burning fan could turn them into ashes with just a single blow. Even if the sky-burning fan could not burn the enemy, it could still trick them a little. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not know the background of the sky-burning fan. For a moment, he naturally could not figure out why the gigantic silver dragon was injured. Ning Fan, however, did not plan to give Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon the chance to think carefully. He raised his hand again, and waved at the gigantic silver dragon. This time, the heavily injured dragon was directly turned into ashes, returning to the original form of the demon essence ruler. The separation and reunion sword that was swallowed by the gigantic dragon just now was also seized by Ning Fan. This was the first time Ning Fan managed to gain an advantage from an immortal venerate by relying on his own strength and a little scheming. There's definitely something strange about this fan. Otherwise, with this young man's cultivation base, he certainly won't be able to break the attack of the demon essence ruler. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was secretly shocked. The way he looked at the sky-burning fan became even more greedy, almost as if he was determined to get it. Just as he was about to activate the demon essence ruler to attack Ning Fan again, Ning Fan took the initiative to activate the sky-burning fan, and swung it at Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Knowing that there was something strange about the sky-burning fan, how could Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon be willing to take the fan's attack head-on? He raised his hand and kept the demon essence ruler back into his sleeve. Then he suddenly patted the top of his head. The top of his head immediately opened and 7 purple demon lamps flew out, protecting his body. As soon as the fiery smoke from the sky-burning fan approached Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon, the 7 demon lamps immediately emitted purple light at the same time, sweeping away all the fiery smoke. With the protection of these 7 demon lamps, the sky-burning fan could not hurt Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon at all, even with its sneaky abilities. Junior, this 7-star lamp is my only 12th Nirvana magic treasure. It can be used for both offense and defense. With this lamp in hand, your sneaky methods won't be able to hurt me. If you don't have any other methods, you can die now. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon pointed at the 7 demon lamps. Each of the 7 demon lamps immediately shot out a ball of purple flames, turning into a sea of flames that covered the sky and engulfed Ning Fan. At the same time, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was cautiously watching Ning Fan burn his blood. From his point of view, Ningfan had used 2 types of 12th Nirvana magic treasures consecutively without gaining the upper hand. He had already exhausted all his tricks, and there was an 80% chance that he was going to burn his blood and risk his life. As long as this young man burns his blood, I will immediately take out the demon essence ruler and suppress his demon blood. No matter what, I will never give him the chance to burn his blood. Otherwise, once he burns all 3 drops of ancestral blood and has 2 12th Nirvana magic treasures in his hands, I may not be his match. Ningfan looked at the sea of purple flames that covered the sky and took a deep breath. Under Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's puzzled gaze, he kept the Separation and Reunion Sword and the Sky-Burning Fan. The Separation and Reunion Sword could not hurt Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon, and the Sky-Burning Fan could not harm him either. Since that was the case, it was meaningless for him to keep them. His greatest reliance was not these 2 12th Nirvana immortal treasures at all. It was not from the beginning. Ningfan tightened his grip on the candle bow in his hand. His eyes suddenly turned sharp. The numerous Joss flame arrows that were hovering around him suddenly shone brightly. Ningfan was reluctant to use these Joss flame arrows as he wanted to save them for the battle with the 7th-generation barbaric ancestor. However, since Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was blocking his way, he had no choice but to use these arrows. Old Man Poisonous Dragon, do you remember what I said in the past? Ningfan's eyes still flickered with cold light. He suddenly raised the candle bow and waved his right hand. 5 6-colored Joss flame arrows appeared and he pulled the bowstring. At the moment when Ningfan pulled the bowstring, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon, who had been calm all along, suddenly had a drastic change in his expression. He actually felt a sense of impending death from the candle bow. What kind of arrow is this? It actually has such a terrifying murderous chi. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's heart was in turmoil. The 6-colored Joss flame arrow was a legendary divine ability of the True Dragon clan. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had never seen it before. That was why he did not know that the arrow Ningfan was going to shoot out was the item that made Ancestor Dragon Zhuli famous. Ancestor Dragon Zhuli had killed countless ancient experts with his bow alone. He founded the True Dragon clan with his own strength. What people respected the most was the usage of the 6-colored Joss flame arrow. The candle bow had the body of a bow spirit. It could condense the Joss flames of slaughter into arrows. However, this bow did not submit to any member of the True Dragon clan. No one had ever subdued it before. Therefore, no one had ever used this bow before, and no one had ever condensed a 6-colored Joss flame arrow. All along, the candle bow's spirit had been enshrined in the ancestral soul pond by the members of the True Dragon clan. They worshipped them like their old ancestor until Ningfan took the bow away. All along, the 6-colored Joss flame arrow had been a legend of the True Dragon clan. Until one day, the candle bow willingly condensed a 6-colored Joss flame arrow for Ningfan in order to save its own life. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not know that the arrows circling Ningfan's body were the famous 6-colored and 7-colored Joss flame arrows in the history of the True Dragon clan. Even though he did not know about it, he could sense a sense of impending death from the 5 6-colored Joss flame arrows that were about to leave the bow. Without any hesitation, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon directly withdrew the sea of purple flames that covered the entire sky. He did not plan to use the power of the 7 demon lamps to attack Ningfan anymore. He randomly chose an ancient bluestone path, turned around and ran towards the direction of the 7th floor. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind, and that was to leave this place as soon as possible. No matter what kind of arrow Ningfan shot at him, he must not take it head-on. In the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, there was an extremely strong restrictive power that forbade the space. Even Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon could not fly. He could only run on his feet. While he was running, he activated the power of the 7-star demon lamps and the demon essence ruler to protect his body. With a single thought, his entire body was immediately covered with purple dragon scales. He had actually summoned all of the natal dragon scales that he had cultivated for countless years, just to defend himself against the attack of the 6-colored Joss flame arrows. You can't escape. At this moment, Ningfan released the bowstring. 5 6-colored joss flame arrows emitted ear-piercing whistling sounds and flew towards Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's back. Even though Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had been running for his life, he could not fly right now. How could he outrun the joss flame arrows? Even though Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had already used 3 layers of defense to protect himself, his entire body was still drenched in cold sweat in an instant. This arrow was too fast. It was so fast that he did not have much time to react at all. He tried to turn around. However, when he had just turned halfway, his body was already engulfed by the 6-colored joss flame arrows. His eyes immediately flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. "Junior, how dare you? You want to kill me with this arrow? Don't even think about it." Chapter 922. "Junior, how dare you? Don't even think about killing me with this arrow." Patriarch Poisonous Dragon's roar reverberated in the air, but it was soon drowned out by the whistling of the 6-colored arrow. He couldn't see Patriarch Poison Dragon's current situation. 5 6-colored arrows shot forth at the same time, and the light they emitted was far too dazzling. The area within a radius of 1,000 feet seemed to have become a world of auroras. Within the aurora, muffled groans could be heard continuously, followed by a series of loud noises. Bang! When the first loud noise rang out, a silver ruler flew out of the center of the arrow light in a sorry state. It was none other than the demon essence ruler that Patriarch Poisonous Dragon used to protect himself. At this moment, there were many cracks on the demonic origin ruler. It looked like it was unable to block the attacks of the 5 arrows, and it was even injured by the 5 arrows. Bang! With another loud bang, the 7 demonic lanterns flew out from the center of the arrow light. 4 of them were covered in cracks, and the other 3 directly exploded into countless fragments as soon as they flew out. This treasure was Patriarch Poison Dragon's only 12th Nirvana magic treasure, the 7-star lamp. From the looks of it, the 7-star lamp was also unable to block the attacks of the 5 arrows. In fact, 3 of the demon lamps had been destroyed by the 5 arrows. Bang! A third loud bang resounded. This time, it was Ancestor Poisonous Dragon who was directly blasted out from the center of the arrow light, and he landed shakily on the ground. Before he could stabilize himself, he had already spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura instantly weakened. At this moment, Patriarch Poisonous Dragon's purple hair was completely disheveled, his body was covered in blood, and there were fine arrow wounds all over his body. Although these wounds weren't fatal, they weren't light injuries either. However, no matter how wretched Patriarch Poison Dragon was, he was not killed by the 5 arrows in the end and survived. 8 jade talismans circled around him, flashing with golden light. Faint traces of dragon souls could be seen flowing through them. The jade talisman was a life-saving item given to him by the Patriarch. It was called the Dragon Soul Jade Talisman. There were 12 of them, but 4 of them were destroyed by the incense 5 arrows. If it wasn't for the jade talisman given by the Patriarch, this old man's injuries would have been more serious. I might even have lost my life. Patriarch Poisonous Dragon found it hard to calm down. That 6-colored incense fire arrow was indeed terrifying. He glanced at Ning Fan imperceptibly. When he saw that there were still 14 joss flame arrows circling around Ning Fan's body, the corner of his eyes immediately shrank. He was shocked and fearful. He couldn't even block 5 arrows at once. If the remaining 14 arrows were all shot out, wouldn't he die without a doubt? Moreover, among the remaining 14 joss flame arrows, there was one that was suffused with a 7-colored cold light. It was clearly different from the other joss flame arrows. When Patriarch Poisonous Dragon's gaze swept across the incense stick, he actually shuddered. He could vaguely sense that the power contained in this arrow was enough to kill him in one shot. Damn it, how could that demon-faced brat have such a heaven-defying item? Sure enough, even 5 arrows can't kill you in one shot. But what if I shoot 5 more arrows? Seeing that old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was still alive, Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. He raised the candle bow again, and shot another 5 arrows. As soon as he saw Ning Fan draw his bow again, old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. Without saying anything, he opened his mouth and spat out a ray of golden light towards the 5 arrows. That golden light was actually the natal dragon pearl that old ancestor Poisonous Dragon had refined for many years. The dragon pearl was an inner core that was unique to the demon cultivators of the true dragon clan. Only some powerful dragon cultivators could condense it, and it had extraordinary uses. At this moment, the demon essence ruler and the 7-star lamp were damaged to varying degrees. Their power was greatly reduced. It was likely that they wouldn't be able to block the attacks of the 5 arrows. Even though he still had 8 dragon soul jade talismans, it was unlikely that they would be able to block the 5 arrows. In order to block Ning Fan's attacks, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon actually used his natal dragon pearl. He really looked like he was going to risk his life. Bang! As soon as the natal dragon pearl collided with the 5 arrows, a deafening sound was heard. However, it only managed to block the 5 arrows for a moment before it was sent flying backwards. With a cracking sound, it broke into 4 pieces and fell to the ground. As soon as the dragon pearl was broken, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's face immediately turned pale. He staggered backwards and his chi became even weaker. Without any hesitation, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon immediately pointed his finger forward. Immediately, the 8 jade talismans that were coiling around his body flew forward and blocked the 5 arrows, turning into 8 layers of barriers. These 8 layers of barriers had saved old ancestor Poisonous Dragon once before. However, this time, as the 5 arrows pierced through the 8 layers of barriers, the 8 layers of barriers immediately shattered one after another. Bang! 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 All 8 layers of barriers were penetrated by the 5 arrows. Then the 8 jade talismans shattered at the same time. At this moment, other than the broken dragon scales on his body, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon no longer had any form of defense. Seeing that the 5 arrows were still coming at him, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon made up his mind and activated his divine ability. His hands turned into dragon claws and directly grabbed at the 5 arrows. He actually wanted to block the 5 arrows with his physical body. Chi. What responded to old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was the sound of sharp blades piercing his flesh. Even a 12th Nirvana magic treasure could not block the sharpness of the 6-colored incense fire arrow. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was not a demon cultivator who specialized in cultivating his physical body. Naturally, he could not block the 5 arrows with his dragon claws. His body was directly penetrated by the 5 arrows, leaving 5 hideous bloody holes that were bleeding profusely. There were even burning joss flames on the wounds. One of the wounds even penetrated his dantian, hurting the demon soul inside. I can't block it. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was unwilling to give up. He felt a sweetness in his throat and coughed out another large mouthful of blood. His chi became weaker and weaker. When he raised his head, he saw Ning Fan raising the candle bow again and knocking another 5 6-colored arrows. Cold sweat immediately flowed all over his body. This is too much. This ghost-faced brat actually dares to bully me like this just because his incense fire arrow is powerful. If Ning Fan's actual strength was strong enough to suppress old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, he would not feel so aggrieved. What made old ancestor Poisonous Dragon feel aggrieved was that Ning Fan's cultivation base was obviously not as high as his. However, Ning Fan had such powerful incense fire arrow in his hand, suppressing him to the point where he could not fight back. He did not even have the time to escape, and was about to be shot into a dumpling by Ning Fan again. This time, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon had lost all of his defensive means. If he is hit by the 5 arrows again, he would either be gravely injured or die. Unfortunately, this place had an extremely strong forbidden force that forbids space. Thus, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon could only run at full speed instead of flying. If he could fly, even if he was no match for Ning Fan, he would still be able to escape with ease. I have already received 10 arrows from this brat. My injuries are extremely severe and my magic treasures are all damaged. Moreover, this brat has yet to use his strongest arrow. If this battle continues, I'm afraid my life will end here. Even if I try to escape, I won't be able to escape from the attack of this arrow. In that case, this is the only way I can barely fly and escape from this place. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's face showed a pained expression as if there was something he could not make a decision on. However, a moment later, his eyes turned ruthless. He circulated his divine ability and opened the top of his head with a palm strike. A ball of purple light flew out from within. With a flash, it actually flew 1,000 zhang away and flew towards the direction of the 7th floor at full speed. That ball of purple light was actually Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul. The human race cultivated their primordial spirit while the demon race cultivated their demon souls. The forbidden force in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court was extremely strong. No cultivator could fly in this place. However, if a cultivator's primordial spirit or demon soul leaves their body, they could still fly in this place. It was just that they could not fly for too long. Unexpectedly, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was afraid of the might of the 7-colored incense fire arrow, and actually escaped with his demon soul. Besides, not only did he not bring the demon essence ruler and the 7-star lamp, which had lost half of their power, but he also did not bring his physical body or his storage pouch with him. It was not that Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not want to bring these items along with him. It was just that the forbidden force in this place was too strong. With Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's cultivation base at the venerated immortal realm, it was already extremely difficult for his demon soul to fly in this place. If he carries any more items with him, his demon soul would immediately be overwhelmed and fall from the sky. You want to leave? Do you think you can? Ning Fan put down the candle bow. He did not immediately shoot the fire arrow at Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Instead, he suddenly raised his right hand and pointed at the direction where Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was escaping. Freeze! A simple word came out from his mouth. Immediately, Ning Fan spurted out a mouthful of blood and retreated. Obviously, he had suffered quite a heavy backlash when he forcefully stopped Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul with his current cultivation base. He was no longer the weak-life Immortal Realm cultivator in the past. He had already become a true immortal of a region. Besides, he even cultivated the Calamity Blood. Just the strength of his minor accomplishment Calamity Blood alone was enough to sweep away all void-shedding realm cultivators. In terms of magic power and calamity sense, he was not any weaker than an early thought fragmentation realm old monster. The difference in cultivation base between him and Eternal Immortal Venerated Immortal Realm was not as huge as he imagined. At this moment, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was severely injured. His chi was extremely weak and only his demon soul was escaping. With Ning Fan's cultivation base, it was not difficult for him to stop Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon for a while. As long as Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had the Heaven Sealing technique in his hands, he would not be able to escape even if he could ignore the forbidden force in this place. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon immediately realized that he was forcefully stopped in midair by the force of Ning Fan's finger. He could no longer fly forward. Heaven Sealing technique. Oh no! I forgot that this young man knows this technique. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul was stopped in midair. His heart was filled with regret, and he desperately tried to break free. I've said it before. You won't be able to escape. Killing intent flashed across Ning Fan's eyes. He raised his candle bow and shot an arrow at Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. This time, he only shot a 6-colored incense arrow. However, at this moment Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon, who was severely injured and only had his demon soul left, would probably not be able to withstand this arrow. The moment he broke free from the Heaven Sealing technique, the 6-colored arrow had already reached him. It pierced through Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul. The blazing incense flame of slaughter immediately burned Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul bit by bit. An immortal venerate of a generation was actually going to die in this place. I actually died in the hands of a junior. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. At this moment, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's heart was filled with a hint of regret. The words that Ning Fan had said to him when he was chasing after Ning Fan in the past emerged in his mind. I will definitely take revenge for what I've done today in the future. That's right. In the past, I used an arrow to kill this young man. Today, this young man is also using an arrow to kill me. The cycle of karma is indeed true. I really regret it. What I regret is that I didn't kill this young man in one go in the past and gave him the chance to devour me. Karma. Those were the last two words that old ancestor Poisonous Dragon uttered before his soul dissipated. After killing old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, Ningfan was left with 7 6-colored arrows and 1 7-colored arrow. At the same time, he suffered severe injuries which were caused by the backlash of forcefully using the heaven sealing technique. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was not the first immortal venerate Ningfan had killed. Before this, Ningfan had already killed a few barbaric ancestors. In terms of battle achievements alone, it was indeed a little scary. However, Ningfan understood that these battle achievements were built by these 6-colored and 7-colored incense arrows. Without these incense arrows, Ningfan would not be a match for immortal venerate Eternal Time at all. At most, he could only escape from immortal venerate Eternal Time by relying on the soaring golden light. The incense arrow was not omnipotent. In order to create it, it required a large amount of incense flames of slaughter, and it could only be used to kill specific targets. For example, the incense arrow in Ningfan's hand was condensed from the incense flames of slaughter of all living beings in the desolate mountain. What it could kill was only the murderers of the desolate mountain. That was all. If old ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not sacrifice the desolate mountain, the incense arrows in Ningfan's hand would not be able to cause too much damage to him. If old ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not kill Ningfan with his bow, Ningfan would not have killed old ancestor Poisonous Dragon many years later. Karma. The enmity of a single arrow in the past has been settled with 11 arrows today. Is this karma? Ningfan pondered. The higher his cultivation base was, the more he felt that everything in this world was indeed related to karma. After killing old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, Ningfan suffered severe injuries and lost 11 6-colored incense arrows. However, he also obtained a lot of spoils of war. The golden dragon pearl that was broken into 4 pieces was taken away by Ningfan. It was the dragon pearl of an immortal venerate demon dragon. It was definitely a supreme treasure. This item could be used to refine treasures, or even directly refined and consumed. This dragon pearl contained a lot of demonic power of old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. The demon essence ruler and the 7-star lamp were also taken away by Ningfan. Both of them were damaged, especially the 7-star lamp. There were only 4 lamps left. However, no matter what, they were both 12 Nirvana magic treasures. Ningfan could still use them after repairing them in the future. Naturally, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's storage pouch was also taken away by Ningfan. The storage pouch of Immortal Venerate 10,000 Ancient Immortal Venerate naturally had a lot of good items. However, Ningfan's eyesight was extremely good. There were not many items that could catch his eye. Among them, there was a jade box which caught Ningfan's attention. The jade box actually contained an embryonic pill of the Emperor-grade pill. Ningfan was inwardly shocked. An embryonic pill referred to a semi-finished pill. It had yet to be completely refined, and only had a portion of its medicinal power. Even though it was an embryonic pill, it was still an Emperor-grade pill. 9 revolution pills were divided into 4 grades: lead grade, silver grade, gold grade and Emperor grade. Pills that reached the gold grade were already extremely rare. After all, there were only a few gold core realm pill refinement masters in this world. Pills that reached the Emperor grade were even rarer, because it was still a problem whether there were any Emperor grade pill refinement masters in this world. Some of the Emperor grade pills that existed in this world were all excavated from ancient ruins. They were not concocted by the later generations. Therefore, there were only a few Emperor grade pills in this world. Naturally, Ningfan could not recognize this embryonic Emperor grade pill. He also did not know what kind of medicinal effect it had. He would have to slowly study it in the future. There were also many types of pills. Some were for recovery, some were for raising one's cultivation base, some were for increasing one's strength, some were for concealing one's body, and some were for poison. Before figuring out what the pill was, one must not eat it recklessly. Speaking of which, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon had once set a bounty to hunt me down in the name of the entire True Dragon clan. The reward seemed to be an embryonic Emperor-grade pill. Could this embryonic pill be the reward of that bounty? Ningfan thought to himself. In the end, Ningfan's eyes swept across old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's corpse. and kept it which was still considered intact. This was the corpse of immortal venerate 10,000 ancient immortal venerate. Moreover, it was still in good condition. There were only some arrow wounds on its body. Even though it was the corpse of a demon, it still had a great use for him. Ning Fan had taken in quite a number of servants when he entered the desolate land this time. For example, Tuemo and Taiya. Both of them were once immortal venerables of ancient times. Unfortunately, they had lost their physical bodies. He did not know if this physical body could be possessed by the two of them. If it was possible, they could regain their immortal venerables cultivation base after obtaining their physical bodies. At that time, Ning Fan would have immortal venerables who were at the level of 10,000 ancient immortal venerables as his subordinates. After keeping all the spoils of war, Ning Fan did not immediately proceed forward. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ground and consumed a pill to heal his injuries. After his injuries had stabilized, he chose the ancient path and walked towards the first palace on the 6th floor. He had used up too many incense flame arrows to kill old ancestor poisonous dragon. Now that the number of incense flame arrows that could resist the aura force of the palace was reduced, Ning Fan's speed could not help but become slower. After pondering for a while, he summoned the separation and reunion sword, the blue burning fan, the demon essence ruler, and the 7-star lamp. They coiled in front of him to share the aura force of the palace. A single 12th Nirvana magic treasure would not be able to share too much of the aura force of the palace. Fortunately, Ning Fan had 4 12th Nirvana magic treasures which allowed him to share a lot of the aura force. Even though the demon essence ruler and the 7-star lamp were severely damaged, and he had yet to refine them, Ning Fan did not intend to use them in a battle. He just wanted to borrow their magic treasures to share the aura force of the palace. Even if he had yet to refine them, he could still use them reluctantly. With the help of the many magic treasures, Ning Fan advanced forward while withstanding the powerful aura force of the palace. Finally, his speed became slightly faster. However, no matter how fast he walked, it was not as fast as the flow of the baleful qi. After he killed old ancestor poisonous dragon, the baleful qi that was generated was extremely massive. After all, old ancestor poisonous dragon was an ancient immortal venerate. Before Ning Fan could ascend to the 7th floor of the heavenly palace, the massive baleful qi had already crossed the sky and floated to the 7th floor. Currently, only 6 combinations immortal venerables and venerables wonderful words were left on the 7th floor of the heavenly palace. The other immortal venerables had already ascended to the 8th floor one after another. At this moment, 6 combinations immortal venerables had already reached the 97th palace of the 7th floor. He was not far away from entering the 8th floor. Just as he was slowly breaking through the 98th palace, he suddenly sensed the baleful qi that was rushing towards him. His heart was instantly filled with shock. Hiss! Old man poisonous dragon is actually dead. Who killed him? As an immortal venerables of the human race, he was old ancestor poisonous dragon's mortal enemy. Naturally, he would not feel pity for old ancestor poisonous dragon's death. However, 6 combinations immortal venerables could not imagine who had the ability to kill old ancestor poisonous dragon in this ancient wild ancient region where the strongest cultivators were just a few immortal venerables. He believed that he might be able to suppress old ancestor poisonous dragon with his cultivation base in a fair fight. However, it was impossible for him to kill him. Even when he joined forces with Miao Yin in the past, they still failed to kill old ancestor poisonous dragon. They could only injure him. The cultivator who killed old ancestor poisonous dragon seems to have some terrifying means. I wonder who it is. Wait. This baleful qi. All of a sudden, 6 combinations immortal venerable's expression changed drastically. He had sensed a trace of another person's qi from this massive baleful qi. That qi belonged to Ning Fan. The commotion he caused when he killed old ancestor poisonous dragon was too great. It was inevitable for Ning Fan to leave some of his qi behind. As the baleful qi flowed, it was sensed by 6 combinations immortal venerables. Huge waves surged in 6 combinations immortal venerable's heart. He cried out involuntarily. The one who killed poisonous dragon is actually that Zhao Jian. How is this possible? I can't believe he actually has such capabilities. Chapter 923. The Six Directions. Immortal Venerate had always been calm and composed. He did not show his emotions on his face. Now, however, he showed a rare expression of shock after seeing Ning Fan kill old ancestor Du Long. He had never thought that Ning Fan actually had the strength to kill old ancestor Du Long. He knew that he could not do it himself. The scenes of him offending Ning Fan on that day flashed across his mind. His expression turned slightly unpleasant. That day he deliberately made things difficult for Ning Fan to test him, and even competed with him for the wondrous Seven Treasures tree. Fortunately, they did not fall out completely in the end. It seemed like there was still a possibility for them to mend their relationship. The Six Directions Immortal Venerate was naturally arrogant. Moreover, he had the backing of the Four Directions sect. Thus, he was naturally not afraid of offending Ning Fan. However, he also did not want to become enemies with Ning Fan, because Ning Fan had the strength that he valued. In the cultivation world, everything still depended on one's strength. I didn't expect this Zhao Jian to be so powerful. He can be of use to my sect. Currently, there are only 2 human immortal venerates in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, me and Miao Yan. If we can rope him in and help my sect seize the ancient passage. The Six Directions Immortal Venerate's eyes flickered as if he was thinking. At the same time, Miao Yan walked gracefully. Her body was enveloped in faint purple starlight. She slowly walked out of the 84th palace on the 7th floor. The entire 7th floor was filled with a cold and gloomy qi. When the yin qi rushed towards her, she could not help but cough softly. Her face became even paler. She had accumulated too many injuries in the great calamity of the wilderness. Her body still felt weak. She should have gone into seclusion to heal her injuries. However, she suppressed her injuries and came to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. It was all because she was an immortal venerate of the Six Directions sect. She still had a responsibility to help the Four Directions sect seize the ancient passage. Her expression was calm as she slowly walked forward. All of a sudden, her beautiful eyes widened in shock. She raised her head and looked at the blood-red baleful qi that rose into the sky like a tornado. This baleful qi, it's the qi of old ancestor Du Long, who is so powerful to actually kill old ancestor Du Long in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The death of an ancient immortal venerate was not a trivial matter. Miao Yan could not help but feel shocked. Very soon, however, she sensed a trace of Ning Fan's qi from the baleful qi. After being slightly stunned, how could she not know who the murderer was? So it's fellow Taoist Zhao. Didn't he say that he wouldn't come to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court? But he still came. He's really a man who says one thing but means another. Venerable Miao Yan pursed her phoenix lips with a slight smile. Then, she thought of something and frowned slightly. I wonder if fellow Taoist Zhao was injured in your battle against Patriarch Poison Dragon. It's impossible for him to come out unscathed after killing a 10,000 ancient immortal venerable. He seemed to be a little worried as he looked towards the direction of the Heaven Imperial Court. Venerated Miao Yan was not surprised by the strength Ning Fan displayed when he killed old ancestor Du Long. After all, she had already seen Ning Fan kill the 3rd and 5th ancestors. She knew how powerful his abilities were. Ning Fan might not be an ancient immortal venerable, but his strength was not to be underestimated. Venerable Miao Yan deeply agreed with this point. The baleful aura that blotted out the sky and covered the earth howled as it spread all the way to the horizon of the 7th level, and then suddenly rushed into the 8th level. On the 8th floor of the Heaven Imperial Court, the yin qi was even heavier, and it was incomparably cold. There was only one ancient bluestone path in the entire 8th level. The ancient path was covered with ice that was tens of zhang thick. The 4 barbarian ancestors and Ao Xian walked on the same ancient path. They did not have any intention to fight each other. All of them concealed their qi and acted cautiously. There was no sound of wind in the sky. Instead, there were tens of thousands of ice coffins floating lifelessly in the air. The surroundings were dead silent. No one dared to make a sound and no one dared to make a sound. When the baleful aura rushed into the 8th level, the originally silent heaven and earth suddenly changed. The ice coffins began to tremble. Their lids swayed as if they were about to open. All of a sudden, The 4 barbarian ancestors and venerated immortal Ao Xian who were quietly entering the palace raised their heads. Other than the 7th ancestor who was expressionless, the expressions of the others changed drastically. The 7th ancestor's position was the closest to the front. He had already reached the 97th palace of the 8th level. Presumably, he would be able to enter the 9th level very soon. His expression was wooden, and he looked like a walking corpse. He raised his head to look at the baleful aura that filled the sky and then looked away as if he did not see it. He was immersed in his own world and continued to move forward. The 1st ancestor, the 2nd ancestor, and the 4th ancestor followed closely behind him. Ao Xian was the last. Unlike the 7th ancestor who was calm, the 4 of them could not remain calm at all. They could not ignore the baleful aura that rushed into the sky. Baleful aura. Damn it, why is there so much baleful aura? In the 8th level, not a single bit of chi could be released. Oh no, why is there such a strong baleful aura rushing into the 8th level? The 4th ancestor roared in his heart, but he did not dare to make a sound. His eyes were fixed on the floating ice coffins. Those things are going to be awakened by the baleful aura. Oh no. The 2nd ancestor was extremely nervous. He cultivated the Een Death divine ability, which was good at dealing with dead spirits and baleful auras. However, those divine abilities had no effect on the baleful auras. What a strong baleful aura! Which ancient immortal venerable has fallen? I wonder who it is. We must get rid of this baleful aura. We must not awaken those baleful auras. Ao Xian did not dare to make a sound. He also did not dare to release his spirit sense to check the baleful aura. Naturally, he did not know that the one who died was Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon, and the one who killed them was Ning Fan. No one dared to recklessly release their spirit sense on the 8th level, as they were afraid of attracting the attention of those ice coffins. Just as the ice coffins were about to open, the 1st ancestor made his move. His eyes were filled with anxiety. He pointed the blood-red bone sword in his hand at the sky. Instantly, countless rays of blood light flashed across the sky and disappeared without a trace. At the next moment, the baleful aura in heaven and earth slowly disappeared without a trace. As the baleful aura disappeared, the ice coffins that were making creaking sounds also became quiet. There were no signs of them opening anymore. Seeing this, the 1st ancestor heaved a sigh of relief. The others also relaxed their tense expressions at the same time. That was close. I almost woke up those ferocious creatures. The 1st ancestor glanced at the tens of thousands of ice coffins, and felt his scalp go numb. His left sleeve seemed to have been torn by something, revealing half of his arm. On his arm, a piece of flesh seemed to have been ripped off by something. The wound was oozing with rancid black blood. Even with his cultivation base, he couldn't heal the wound. The wound was left by the ferocious creatures in the ice coffins. Only God knew how strong the physical body of the 1st ancestor's stone statue was. However, it could not withstand a casual attack from those ferocious creatures. Any one of those ferocious creatures would be too terrifying. Touching the wound on his arm, the 1st ancestor looked at the rows of ice coffins in the sky. His scalp went numb, and he became even more cautious. The baleful aura that rushed to the 8th level was instantly taken away by the 1st ancestor, and no one dared to release their spirit sense to check the baleful aura on the 8th level. Therefore no one, including Ao Xian, knew that the baleful aura had appeared because Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had died. No one knew that the murderer was Ning Fan. Everyone could only vaguely sense that a 10,000 ancient immortal venerable had fallen. As for who it was, no one knew. The baleful aura came from the lower level. From the looks of it, the one who died was either Miao Yen or Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon who went to the lower level. The wild ancestors were not concerned about who the deceased was. Ao Xian, on the other hand, was rather worried. Could the dead immortal venerable be Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon? Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had 2/12 Nirvana magic treasures to protect himself, and the jade talisman that the clan leader had given him to protect himself. Even if he was besieged by several immortal venerables at the same time, he still had the ability to protect himself. The one who died should not be Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Perhaps the mysterious cultivator, who took away the clan leader's primordial chi, was a 10,000 ancient immortal venerable, who was killed by old ancestor poisonous dragon. That was why the monstrous baleful aura was left behind. Or perhaps one of Lu He and Miao Yin was killed by old ancestor poisonous dragon, leaving behind this monstrous baleful aura. Ao Xian was quite confident in old ancestor poisonous dragon's ability to protect himself. His eyes focused, and he advanced cautiously with the protection of his innate magic treasure, the Brahma demon puppet. In the outside world, the true dragon clan leader's expression was gloomy. He held a small green pagoda in his hand. The pagoda formed a space of its own, and enshrined the life tablets of cultivators above the immortal venerables of the true dragon clan. The true dragon clan leader's eyes widened in anger. He had just ordered one of Ao Xian and Poison Dragon to retrieve the primordial chi, when old ancestor poisonous dragon's life tablet shattered. What did this mean? It meant that the one who went to retrieve the primordial chi was old ancestor poisonous dragon, but he actually failed. Useless. Truly useless. Not only did he fail to retrieve the primordial chi, he even lost his life. Is that mysterious cultivator so powerful that poisonous dragon couldn't even escape? Truly useless. The true dragon clan leader was so angry that he laughed. If it was during normal times, old ancestor poisonous dragon's death would not be a big deal. However, it was now a special period to fight for the ancient passage. Old ancestor poisonous dragon's death was extremely disadvantageous to the demon race. There were originally only 2 immortal venerables of the demon race, who entered the 9 heavens imperial court. After old ancestor poisonous dragon's death, Ao Xian was the only one left. The barbarian race had 4 barbaric ancestors while the human race had 2 immortal venerables. Besides that, there was also the mysterious cultivator, who took away his primordial chi. Under such circumstances, Ao Xian was the only one left in the demon race. Now, it would be much more difficult for the demon race to seize the ancient passage. To the true dragon clan leader, the primordial chi was no doubt important, but seizing the ancient passage was even more important. He could not afford to make any mistakes. If he knew that old ancestor poisonous dragon would lose his life in order to retrieve the primordial chi, he would never have given the order to search for the primordial chi. He had miscalculated. The mysterious cultivator who took away the primordial chi was far stronger than he had imagined. He actually made old ancestor poisonous dragon lose his life before he could even escape. Good. This is really good. The true dragon old ancestor flicked his sleeve and took out an ancient gilded token from it. He held it tightly in his hand. When some of the great sovereigns of the demon race saw this, they sucked in a cold breath and cried out involuntarily. 1 billion demon sealing token. The true dragon old ancestor did not say a word. He just held the token tightly. His heart was filled with endless killing intent. He could not wait to tear Ningfan into 1,000,000 pieces. The matter of the primordial chi was not a big deal. The ancient passage was a big deal. He could not send Ao Xian to search for the primordial chi anymore. He could only put this matter aside for the time being. That person has already reached the 22nd palace of the 6th floor. His speed is very fast. The demon who was activating her sensing ability carefully reported to the true dragon clan leader. On the surface of her painting, Ningfan's blurry figure was projected out of the 22nd palace of the 6th floor. She immediately reported to the true dragon clan leader. Looking at Ningfan's blurry figure, the killing intent in the true dragon clan leader's eyes became colder. However, he smiled coldly. He has already reached the 6th floor, huh? Good. Very good. My primordial chi isn't something that can be taken so easily. After the matter of the ancient passage is over, I will certainly make you spit it out in its entirety. When the true dragon clan leader was enraged, the ancient reaching heaven sovereign's eyes were deep and unreadable. The name of old ancestor poisonous dragon was forcefully erased from the giant monument in front of him. This meant that one of the 2 immortal venerables that the demon race sent to the 9 heavens imperial court had died. In this way, the demon race only had 1 immortal venerables left. As for the human race, there were 3 of them left, including Ningfan. To the human race, this seemed to be extremely beneficial news. However, the ancient reaching heaven sovereign's face did not show any hint of happiness. Instead, his expression was rather solemn. The ancient reaching heaven sovereign's eyes were fixed on the 8th position of the giant monument. The 8th position was Ningfan's current position. Previously, when old ancestor Poisonous Dragon went to the 6th floor, his position was naturally also displayed on the giant monument. When Ningfan arrived at the 6th floor, the two of them were at the same position. Then, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon died. From the looks of it, the one who killed Poisonous Dragon is most likely this nameless cultivator. This person is really powerful. Moreover, he is a human. He won't be someone from the demon race or the barbarian race. If we have this person's help, our 4 majestic sect's chances of seizing the ancient passage will certainly increase greatly. I'm just afraid that this person comes from some secret race. The ancient reaching heaven sovereign's eyes turned grim. In the 4 heavens, countless sects were interested in the ancient passage. They hoped to find the key to open the passage and enter the legendary ancient realm of Heavenly Desolate. According to the legends, only by entering the ancient realm of Heavenly Desolate would one be able to find enough beginning, nirvana and desolate chi to advance to the 3rd step of the Saint Realm. According to the legends, the ancient realm of Heavenly Desolate was the only passage from the illusory world to the Zido immortal region. Another legend, the ancient reaching heaven sovereign had the cultivation base of a quasi-saint realm expert. Moreover, his cultivation base had been stuck at this level for countless years. He just could not touch the bottleneck of the saint realm and become a saint. He longed to open the ancient passage and enter the ancient realm of Heavenly Desolate to step into the saint realm. There were many people who had the same thought as him. The ones who were most interested in the ancient passage were none other than the 10 great secret races. They were the 10 greatest ancient forces in the 4 heavens. The place where they resided was mysterious. There were countless experts from each clan. Even the 4 majestic sect was restricted by the secret races and did not dare to compete with them. However, even though the 10 great secret races were interested in the ancient passage, they never participated in the competition for it. In the recent 1 million years, the situation had changed a little. Some of the secret races began to secretly recruit foreign elders and asked them to search for the ancient passage on their behalf. It seemed that due to some reasons, the members of the 10 great secret races could not directly participate in the competition for the ancient passage. The ancient reaching heaven sovereign narrowed his eyes. He was worried that Ningfan was someone sent by the secret races. If Ningfan is really a member of the secret races, even if he obtains the ancient passage, it would probably belong to the secret races. The ancient reaching heaven sovereign naturally did not know that he was overthinking. Ningfan was not someone sent by the secret races at all. Moreover, he did not covet the ancient passage at all. As time passed, the baleful chi that lingered in heaven and earth gradually dissipated. However, the baleful chi on Ningfan's body condensed and did not disperse. His chi was cold and frightening. The amount of baleful chi that he obtained from killing the 10,000 ancient immortal venerables was enormous. If it wasn't for Ningfan's innate ghost mask which was suppressing the baleful chi, he would probably have lost his mind due to the baleful chi of such a level. In his storage pouch, a certain token was glowing with golden light. It was transforming bit by bit because of Ningfan's action of killing old ancestor Dulong. While walking on the ancient greenstone path, Ningfan suddenly sensed something. He patted his storage pouch and took out his immortal position token. However, he had neglected the fact that he had obtained a large amount of battle merits from killing old ancestor Dulong. His immortal position seemed to be going to advance again. After entering the ancient wild region, Ningfan had killed many demon cultivators. With the accumulated battle merits, his immortal position had already advanced to the 5th grade low-grade gold immortal realm. Now that he had killed old ancestor Dulong, he naturally obtained another large amount of battle merits. After receiving the battle merits, the immortal position token underwent another transformation. 1/3 of the originally golden token had turned into the texture of a purple jade. The immortal position recorded on the token had changed from the low-grade gold immortal realm to the mid-grade. It seemed like he had been promoted again. Unfortunately, it was only at the 5th grade mid-grade. Ning Fan's expression was slightly regretful. He shook his head. After all, he had killed an ancient immortal venerate. Initially, he thought that these battle merits would be enough for his immortal position to break through to the 4th grade heavenly supervisor. Now, however, it seemed like it was an extravagant hope. What Ning Fan did not know was that there were only a few hundred people in the entire 4 heavens who had attained the 5th grade mid-grade immortal realm. Most of the people who had attained the 5th grade mid-grade immortal realm had gone through millions of years of hard work. They had completed countless missions and made countless contributions in order to be promoted to this position step by step. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was different. He had directly killed an immortal venerate of the demon race in the savage battlefield, and attained the mid-grade gold immortal realm in a single bound. It was already considered extremely rare. After keeping the immortal position token into his storage pouch, Ning Fan increased his speed and continued moving forward. With the protection of 4 12th Nirvana magic treasures, and the remaining 8 Joss flame arrows, Ning Fan could pass through a palace every few breaths. Such speed was much faster than any of the ancient immortal venerates in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. There were 2 paths on the ancient bluestone path. In the beginning he could still see the rumbling lightning. As he moved forward, the lightning gradually disappeared, and was replaced by an increasingly gloomy and cold qi. On the ancient path, some frost gradually appeared on the eaves of the palaces. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2 empty ice coffins drifting towards him from afar, and gradually drifting away. On the ancient path, there would occasionally be a pile of black ash. The pile of ash was filled with extremely strong yin qi. Ning Fan cultivated the corpse devil physique, which made him especially sensitive to yin qi. The first 5 floors of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court did not have any yin qi. However, from the 6th floor onwards, the yin qi seemed to become denser the higher one went along the way. Ning Fan did not encounter any palace that could increase his barbaric blood. This was slightly different from what he had imagined. When he reached the 74th palace on the 6th floor, the lid of an ancient ice coffin that was displayed on a floating cloud suddenly exploded. Along the way, Ning Fan had already encountered many empty coffins. However, this ice coffin was not empty. At the moment when the lid of the coffin flew up, a gush of cold yin qi immediately locked onto Ning Fan. At the next moment, a black shadow that carried a putrid stench instantly rushed to Ning Fan's front. Its speed was too fast. Few people below the ancient immortal venerates could dodge the attack of that black shadow. Since the 9 Heavens Imperial Court forbade space, Ning Fan could not fly or evade in time. However, his expression remained calm even though he was shocked. Without saying a word, he directly activated the 4 7-star demon lamps that were protecting him to block the black shadow. There were originally 7 of these demon lamps. However, when he seized them from old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, they were already severely damaged. Moreover, 3 of them were destroyed and only 4 were left. Even though their power was greatly reduced, they were still a set of 12th Nirvana grade defensive magic treasures after all. Their defensive power was quite shocking. The black shadow, however, did not even look at the 4 demon lamps that were flying towards him. He directly waved his hand and grabbed at the 4 demon lamps. When the huge hand and the magic treasures collided, a sound of metal colliding resounded. A tremendous force spread out, and the 4 demon lamps were sent flying backwards. However, the black shadow did not take even half a step back. Instead, it dashed towards Ning Fan again. Only then did Ning Fan see clearly that the black shadow was an ancient corpse that had been rotting for God knows how many years. Its festering face was no longer recognizable. There were no eyeballs in its eye sockets, but dark green ghost flames were flickering. A putrid stench assaulted Ning Fan's nostrils. He suddenly raised his hand, and the separation and reunion sword appeared in his hand. Then he slashed it towards the front. The sea of clouds was directly split apart by Ning Fan's sword light. Facing such a sharp sword light, the ancient corpse did not dodge at all. Instead, it allowed the sword light to slash its body and was directly sent flying away. An extremely shallow dent was left on its chest, but it was not injured at all. Ning Fan's eyes immediately turned cold when he saw the dent. It would be fine if the 7-star demon lamp could not defend against the ancient corpse's attack. After all, the lamp was already damaged, and its power had already been greatly reduced. However, the separation and reunion sword was not damaged at all. With Ningfan's current cultivation base, he might not be able to unleash the full power of the sword, but it should not be this weak. It was not that the separation and reunion sword was too weak, but the physical body of the ancient corpse was too strong. It was so strong that it could directly withstand the attack of a 12th Nirvana magic treasure. Zido Immortal Cultivation Realm. Defy the tribulation to survive. I have no regrets. Life and death are all for Zido Immortal Cultivation Realm. Endless killing intent burst out from the hollow eye sockets of the ancient corpse. It took a step in the air and instantly approached Ningfan. While speaking indifferently, its black claw light directly clawed at Ningfan's head. Ningfan waved the separation and reunion sword again, and sent the ancient corpse flying 100 zhang away. However, the rebounding force also made him take a few steps back. While he was dodging, his eyes were still clear and his mind was filled with the intermittent words of the ancient corpse. Zido. Zido. Could it be that this ancient corpse came from the Zido Immortal region? Could it be a cultivator under Immortal Sovereign Zido when he was alive? As his thoughts flashed, the ancient corpse bared its teeth again and let out a strange roar, rushing towards Ningfan. It seemed like it did not have any other abilities and could only rely on its strong physical body to attack. However, the strength of its claw was not to be underestimated. A casual claw from it was comparable to an attack from a 12th Nirvana magic treasure. Ningfan did not have the time to think about the identity of this corpse. The only thing he needed to do now was to save his own life from this corpse. This corpse's physical body was extremely strong. Magic treasures alone would not be able to hurt it. With Ningfan's cultivation base, he might not be able to hurt the ancient corpse even if he uses magic techniques. However, this ancient corpse gave Ningfan a rather familiar feeling. It was the same feeling he had felt from Si Ming, who had the undying devil veins. Green light flashed in Ningfan's eyes. The veins of the great Tao became clearer in his eyes. With just a glance, Ningfan saw through everything about this ancient corpse and also thought of a way to deal with it. This ancient corpse was actually just an empty shell. Even though its physical body was strong, its internal structure was extremely weak. It was just relying on the trace of undying qi in its body to run rampant. If that trace of qi disappears, this corpse would immediately turn into an empty shell. Ningfan could not destroy this ancient corpse head-on. However, he had a way to cut off the undying qi in its body and turn it into an empty shell. He had learned the 5 yin-yang swords from Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. The Heaven Sword severing luck, the Earth Sword severing force, the Human Sword severing life, the Divine Sword severing Tao, and the Ghost Sword severing thought. The life-severing sword had once killed Si Ming, who had the undying devil veins. Therefore, it should be very effective in dealing with the undying qi in this ancient corpse. Ningfan's face showed a ruthless expression. He took half a step back and suddenly raised the separation and reunion sword, pointing it at the ancient corpse. As he circulated his magic power, the tip of the sword was slowly covered with a layer of moon-white sword light. That sword light seemed ordinary. However, in the eyes of the ancient corpse, it made him stop in his tracks. His expression was filled with unprecedented fear, and he did not dare to approach it. This ancient corpse did not have much spiritual intelligence. The intermittent words he uttered just now were just the result of his obsession before he died. Perhaps he was really a cultivator of the Zido Immortal region who had a strong obsession before he died. That was why he could say those unforgettable words after his death. However, at this moment, he was just a dead man, a corpse. He did not have any emotions, memories, or spiritual intelligence. From Ningfan's sword light, the ancient corpse instinctively sensed a trace of fatal danger. As if it was nailed to the ground, it stood still and stared at Ningfan from a distance of 10 zhang. Back off. Otherwise, I will cut off the undying qi in your body. Ningfan's eyes suddenly turned cold. The ancient corpse seemed to understand his words. It took a few steps back and trembled slightly. After a while, it turned around and flew back to the ice coffin. How would it dare to attack Ningfan? Seeing that the ancient corpse was scared away, Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. He continued to move forward. He passed through the last palace and arrived at the top of the 6th floor. At the moment he arrived, more than 10 ancient coffins flew towards him from afar. As soon as the lid of the coffin flew away, 12 black shadows immediately rushed towards Ning Fan. All of them were rotten ancient corpses. They roared continuously as if they wanted to stop Ning Fan from ascending to the 7th floor. There were also a few ancient corpses muttering to themselves intermittently. All of them were saying the same thing. Life and death are all for Zido immortal. Chapter 924. Life and death are all for the Purple Dipper immortal realm. Living against the calamity, dying without regrets. Although these ancient corpses uttered these words unconsciously, Ning Fan could feel a desolate obsession from them. Eternal immortality. In life, I only want to be a cultivator of the Purple Dipper immortal domain. In death, I want to be buried for the Purple Dipper immortal domain. It was because of such an obsession that these ancient corpses could still unconsciously utter these words after countless years of death. Ning Fan did not know why these ancient corpses died, but he could clearly feel the unrepentant persistence in each of them. Vaguely, it confirmed his own Tao persistence. So there really is a kind of persistence in this world that even death can't erase. Roared at a series of strange roars brought Ning Fan back to his senses. The attacks of the 12 ancient corpses had already reached him in an instant, not allowing him to comprehend more. Ning Fan could barely advance and retreat calmly when he was only fighting against one ancient corpse. Now that he was fighting against 12 ancient corpses at the same time, he suddenly felt a pressure as heavy as a mountain. One should know that each of these ancient corpses had strong physical bodies. Once they get close to them, a casual punch would be enough to send a 12 Nirvana magic treasure flying and severely injure an ancient immortal venerable. Ning Fan's eyes were unprecedentedly solemn. He suddenly raised his hand and held the separation and reunion sword horizontally. Without hesitation, he used the third sword of the 5 yin-yang swords, Life Slayer Sword. The Life Slayer Sword could sever the fate of the Great Tao and destroy all kinds of undying beings. This sword technique was the only thing he could rely on to face these terrifying ancient corpses. The moon-white sword light suddenly flowed out in all directions like flowing water. In the beginning, there was only one ray of sword light which was blurry and indistinct. Then, the sword light became more and more numerous. In an instant, it divided into 10 rays, 100 rays, 1,000 rays. Thousands of sword shadows swept out. The circulation of the great Tao of heaven and earth was disrupted at this moment. Before the sword shadows were unleashed, the sword chi had already rushed out. It was obviously an invisible sword chi, but it seemed to contain some kind of power of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Under the impact, the 12 ancient corpses let out a muffled groan at the same time, as if they were hit by a tremendous force. All of them were sent flying hundreds of zhang away. Each of their expressions was filled with fear. In their empty eye sockets, the dark green ghost flames were flickering, as if they could be extinguished at any time. Oh my God, what kind of divine ability is this fiend using? The divine ability is only half activated, and with just the illusory sword chi, it can send 12 death corpse demons flying. The candle bow was filled with astonishment. At this moment, it was not being held in Ning Fan's hand. Instead, it was hovering around Ning Fan along with the other magic treasures, protecting him. Ning Fan did not know the origin of these ancient corpses. He could only vaguely guess that they came from the Zido immortal region. Zhu Gong, on the other hand, knew more. Candle Bao had once followed the ancestral dragon to conquer the world. During that era, the Purple Do immortal domain had not suffered yet. Most of the immortal emperors under Immortal Lord Purple Do were still alive. At that time, Ancestor Dragon Zhu Li was already one of the top 10 immortal emperors under the Immortal Sovereign. He had just gained sentience from the Candle Bao and became its Bao spirit. As the ancestral dragon's Bao spirit, Candle Bao knew many ancient secrets and knew the origins of these ancient corpses. If Candle Bao was right, these corpses were the Death Corpse demons created by the Undying Emperor, using his undying aura. Who was the Undying Emperor? He was the #1 immortal emperor under immortal Lord Purple Doe. He cultivated the undying devil body. Although his cultivation base had yet to step into the third step sage realm, his physical defense had already reached the level of immortality. It was said that even a third step sage would not be able to kill the undying emperor. At most, they could only defeat and suppress him. The so-called Death Corpse demons were corpse puppets that were comparable to ancient immortal venerables created by the undying emperor, using the undying aura in his body. Legend has it that the undying emperor had killed many people in his life. Moreover, he had a hobby of refining the corpses of his enemies into corpse puppets. Of course, the undying emperor had a very high standard. The corpses that he chose were at least the physical bodies of ancient immortal venerables. With the addition of the undying aura, each of these corpse puppets had combat power that was comparable to ancient immortal venerables. These unique corpse puppets were called Death Corpse demons by the cultivators of the Zido immortal region. There were 3 million Death Corpse demons guarding the throne of the undying emperor. Just the 3 million immortal venerables corpse puppets in his hands were enough to make most of the immortal emperors tremble in fear. In that era, there were 1 billion immortal emperors under immortal Lord Purple Doe, and the undying emperor was ranked first. He was the true #1, and no one could replace him. Candlebow had followed the ancestral dragon for many years. Even though he did not see the undying emperor with his own eyes, he had heard about the many characteristics of the Death Corpse demons. Their physical bodies were incomparably strong. Only innate magical treasures and immortal emperor realm divine abilities could damage them. They could not use their divine abilities, and they had almost no spiritual intelligence. Their bodies were filled with an extremely weak undying aura. The 12 ancient corpses in front of him were clearly the Death Corpse demons created by the undying emperor. There was no mistake. Candlebow cultivated the reverse spirit technique of the true dragon clan. His senses were extremely sharp. He could indeed sense a trace of undying aura from these ancient corpses. In this world, only the undying emperor could bestow the undying aura to the corpse puppets. Among all the corpse puppets in this world, only the Death Corpse demons possess the undying aura. These are 12 Death Corpse demons. Each of their strength is comparable to ancient immortal venerables. However, they were actually sent flying away by Ningfan's sword chi. This is just too absurd. What kind of divine ability does this Fiend Star user use? With just half of his sword chi, he managed to send 12 ancient immortal venerables flying away. Of course, he only used half of his sword chi. Before he finished his sword chi, he had already sent 12 Death Corpse demons flying away. This is simply illogical. Candlebow knew a lot of ancient secrets. Unfortunately, he did not know that the undying emperor had only been defeated once by an immortal emperor of the same level as him. At that time, the undying emperor was defeated by the ancient Chaos Emperor. Only a few people knew the result of that battle. What Candlebow did not know was that the ancient Chaos Emperor's life-severing sword was specially used to counter the undying emperor's divine abilities. It was especially effective against the Death Corpse demons. With this technique, the undying emperor tasted defeat. Coincidentally, Ningfan was the inheritor of the ancient Chaos Emperor. He had obtained the complete inheritance of the ancient Chaos Emperor and mastered the life-severing sword technique. However, the 3 million Death Corpse demons of the undying emperor seemed to have died together with the undying emperor in the protective realm battle of Zido Immortal Domain. Why were there still the remaining corpse demons here? Candlebow felt somewhat puzzled. It could not understand this point. Seeing the 12 ancient corpses being blown away by his sword chi, even Ningfan himself was a little surprised. It was not the first time he used the Life Slayer sword. The power of the sword he used just now seemed to be much stronger than before. He had fought Siming before. Siming was the inheritor of the undying demon body, but the undying demon body had yet to reach completion. Thus, there wasn't much undying chi in her body. When he fought against Siming, the life killer sword wasn't this powerful. Previously, he had used the human sword execution life technique to scare away an ancient corpse. Facing a single ancient corpse, the human sword execution life technique was not as powerful. However, when facing 12 ancient corpses at the same time, the power of the Life Slayer sword increased greatly. It was as if the more ancient corpses there were, the more powerful the sword would be. The more enemies there are, the more powerful Life Cutter will be? Ning Fan's eyes flashed. With his comprehension ability, he instantly understood the key point. The more enemies there were, the stronger the killer sword would be. Instead, the more undying chi the enemy had, the stronger the life killer sword would be. This life cutter sword was actually a kind of ability that allowed one to become stronger when facing strong opponents. However, this ability was only applicable to undead creatures. This kind of terrifying life cutter sword was only effective against undead creatures. Its effect on ordinary people was negligible. Previously, when facing a single ancient corpse, Ning Fan could only scare it away with his sword light. Now that he was facing 12 ancient corpses at the same time, he could send them flying with just half a sword. Each of the 12 ancient corpses was filled with fear. The cultivation base of the ghost-masked man in front of them was obviously not high. However, the oppressive feeling he gave them was much stronger than the immortal venerables in the ancient times. It was almost comparable to an immortal king. The source of this oppressive feeling did not come from Ning Fan himself. Instead, it came from the 1,000 moon-white sword lights that were dancing around him. After just being hit by the sword chi, all the ancient corpses were sent flying backward. The dark green ghost flames in their eyes were almost extinguished. Those dark green ghost flames were formed from the undying chi in their bodies. If the ghost flames were extinguished, it meant that their undying chi had dissipated, and they would truly die. The ghost-masked man in front of them was too terrifying to be able to send them flying with just his sword chi. Each of the ancient corpses was filled with fear. They retreated a few zhang backwards. The way they looked at Ning Fan was like how wild beasts saw fire. They did not dare to approach him at all. Gradually, among the 12 ancient corpses, 4 of them showed hesitation. They turned into black shadows and retreated in a flash, giving up the idea of attacking Ning Fan. However, there were still 8 ancient corpses that surrounded Ning Fan and refused to retreat. Gradually, the expressions of these 8 ancient corpses changed from the initial fear to ferociousness. Stinky saliva flowed out from their mouths. They stared at Ning Fan greedily, as if they were staring at a delicious dish. There seemed to be a voice in the minds of the 8 ancient corpses. Eat him. Eat his flesh and drink his blood. It's incomparably delicious. All of a sudden, the 8 ancient corpses roared strangely at the same time. There was a hint of greed in their roars. Then they dashed towards Ning Fan again. At this moment, their appetites suppressed their fear. They just wanted to tear Ning Fan into pieces and eat him to satisfy the hunger in their stomach. They had forgotten about the terror of the life cutter sword. These ancient corpses might have been cultivators of the Purple Do immortal domain when they were alive, and it was very likely that they had died in battle to protect the Purple Do immortal domain. However, after his death, he was reduced to a monster-like existence without any rationality. It was indeed a little sad. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with a hint of pity. He was once the disciple of immortal sovereign Zido, and he had a special feeling towards the Zido immortal domain. If possible, he didn't want to destroy the corpses of the Purple Do cultivators. However, these ancient corpses were determined to attack him, so he could only protect himself. Otherwise, he would be torn to pieces by these ancient corpses. These were ancient corpses that were comparable to the ancient immortal venerables. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, even if he had grasped the life-slaying sword technique, he could only barely protect himself. There was no room for mercy at all. Between life and death, the slightest bit of hesitation could result in death. Seniors, you were born as Purple Dipper cultivators, but you can't rest in peace after you die. Today, I, Ning Fan, am going to send you to your graves. Sending the monarch to die. Ning Fan pointed his sword forward. The sword lights that were dancing in all directions immediately fell on the 8 ancient corpses like a rainstorm. 10, 100, 700. Out of the 1,000 sword lights that were dancing in the air just now, only 700 were left. It was because there were 12 ancient corpses in front of Ning Fan just now. Now 4 of them had escaped, leaving only 8. Sure enough, the life cutter sword technique would become stronger when facing the enemy. The more undying qi the enemy had, the stronger the sword would be. Ningfan was right. Now that the number of enemies had decreased, the sword qi would naturally weaken as well. However, it didn't matter. The sword lights of the 700 Taoist swords were already enough to deal with the 8 ancient corpses. It was indeed enough. The lethality of the life cutter sword against these ancient corpses was much higher than what Ningfan had expected. The physical bodies of these ancient corpses were obviously extremely strong. However, in front of the life cutter sword light, all of them were like tofu. They were easily pierced through by the sword lights and turned into tofu dregs. Chi, chi, chi. The sound of sharp blades piercing into flesh resounded continuously. Tainted blood continuously spilled on the ancient bluestone path. A tall and skinny ancient corpse, who was conceited about the strength of his physical body, tried to resist the sword lights with his physical body. He faced the sword shadows in front of him. His body dashed forward like a cannonball, trying to break the sword shadows in front of him. However, in just an instant, he was pierced through by countless sword lights and turned into a sieve. He let out a miserable shriek, and his corpse directly exploded, turning into black ashes on the ground. When another fat ancient corpse saw the tall and skinny ancient corpse beside him die tragically, he turned around and tried to flee in terror. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Before he could take 2 steps, he was pierced by nearly 100 sword lights and turned into a hornet's nest. Then he died tragically and turned into black ashes. The other ancient corpses also did not manage to withstand the sword lights for long. All of them died under the layers of sword shadows. Only a white-haired ancient corpse who was the strongest among them managed to withstand the sword lights for the longest time. After struggling for 10 breaths of time, he was still not killed. According to cultivation realms, the strength of the other ancient corpses was roughly equivalent to a 0 tribulation to 1st tribulation immortal venerable. As for this ancient corpse, its strength was roughly equivalent to a 1st tribulation immortal venerable, which was slightly stronger than the other ancient corpses. Unfortunately, as the other ancient corpses died one after another, the 700 sword lights converged and instantly turned that ancient corpse into ashes. In the end, the 8 ancient corpses were still killed by Ningfan with a single sword strike. Everything only took 10 breaths of time. What kind of sword technique is this evil star envoy using? It's just too terrifying. He's just at the crossing truth realm, but he managed to kill 8 immortal venerables with a single sword strike. How can there be such a terrifying sword technique in this world? Zhu Gong was too shocked. He thought that he had followed Ningfan for a long time, and was used to seeing Ningfan's heaven-defying actions. However, he was still shocked today. It was his fault for not recognizing the life-slaying sword of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. The 4 ancient corpses who fled just now looked at Ningfan with fear across the layers of clouds. Their faces that did not have much spiritual intelligence actually showed a human-like expression of joy. Fortunately, they were smart enough to retreat without hesitation. If they did not retreat, they would probably be turned into ashes like the other 8 of their kind. Whoosh 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 swoosh. That the sound of 4 figures breaking the air could be heard from afar. It was the 4 ancient corpses who had fled without caring about anything. They no longer wanted to watch the battle. After witnessing the terror of Ningfan's sword strike, how could they still dare to stay here and wait to be slaughtered? Even wild beasts would follow their instincts and run away. Ningfan did not care about the ancient corpses that were running away. His eyes swept across the black ashes on the ground, and he seemed to have understood something. The puddles of black ashes that he saw along the way were probably left behind by these ancient corpses after they were killed. In other words, when the others passed through the 6th floor, they were also attacked by these ancient corpses? I wonder how those people dealt with these ancient corpses. If the others did not have a heaven-defying divine ability like the life-slaying sword, it would not be easy for them to kill these ancient corpses. I wonder if venerated Miao Yin is safe and sound. Her injuries are not light. If she is attacked by these ancient corpses, there's also the 7th ancestor. I wonder which floor and which palace the 7th ancestor has reached, and how long it will take for him to catch up to me. The souls of millions of barbarians are still in the hands of the 7th ancestor. I must take them back. This is where Ning Fan's stubbornness lies. There is no reason for the people he saved to be killed by others. Even if the enemy is the 7th-generation barbaric ancestor, even if the injuries on his body were not light, his aura force was getting stronger and stronger. After cultivating the Tao obsession, the stubbornness in Ning Fan's character became even stronger than before. After trying to control his body with his demon body, Ning Fan's chi was tainted by the Fuli clan. After achieving the minor accomplishment in the realm of calamity blood, Ning Fan's chi made people's hearts palpitate. It was as if he had the power to drive people crazy and become a devil. After killing old ancestor Dulong, the baleful chi in Ning Fan's body became unprecedentedly strong. The baleful chi that he obtained was completely different from when he killed the barbaric ancestor. Under the various changes, Ning Fan's current chi was released without any reservation because he did not deliberately suppress it. It gave people a feeling of stubbornness, madness, brutality and darkness. He was like a bloodthirsty demon beast or a peerless devil lord who killed people like scything flax. Wrong. He was originally a devil lord who killed people like scything flax. It was just that his current devil nature was unprecedentedly strong. Currently, Ning Fan's chi contained the evilness of a demon cultivator, the cruelty of a devil cultivator, and the madness of a tribulation cultivator. However, he did not have the mercy of a divine cultivator. With a casual swing of his sword, he broke the sky of the 6th floor. Stepping on the turbulent space, Ning Fan stepped into the 7th floor of the heaven fault. The moment Ning Fan stepped into the 7th floor, the baleful chi in his body immediately spread like a wild beast. Venerated Miao Yan's beautiful eyes lit up. She giggled. It's fellow Taoist Zhao. Hee. What a domineering aura force. Even I can't bear it. Venerated 6 Directions' expression changed. He looked at Ning Fan from a great distance away. His eyes flashed with golden light. That golden light was the ability of the acquired Dharma eye. It could allow one to see 1,000 miles away without the help of spirit sense. There were also ice coffins floating in the 7th floor. The number was not as many as the 8th floor, but it was still more than the 6th floor. In this place, Venerated 6 Directions did not dare to spread out his spirit sense too much. He only dared to peek at Ning Fan with his Dharma eye. With the help of the acquired Dharma eye, Venerated 6 Directions could see Ning Fan. Ning Fan also seemed to be able to see Venerated 6 Directions. He raised his head and looked at Venerated 6 Directions. Ning Fan also had the acquired Dharma eye. He obtained it after refining the eye of 6 Desires Immortal King. At this moment, both of their eyes met. Ning Fan's eyes were calm and emotionless, as if it was just a normal glance. Venerated 6 Directions, on the other hand, could not calm down no matter how hard he tried. Just by looking at Ning Fan's eyes, he actually felt his hair stand on end. A trace of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. What a terrifying gaze. It's not his expression that is scary but his aura. What kind of devil lord must he be to have such a cold and ferocious gaze? I actually lost control of my mind under Zhao Jian's gaze. How is this possible? I'm an expert among the first tribulation immortal venerated realm. In the first eternal tribulation, there is absolutely no one who can make me lose control of my mind with just a gaze. Not even the immortal venerated realm of the 2nd eternal tribulation can do it. Only the immortal king realm of the 3rd eternal tribulation can give me such a feeling. Could it be that Zhao Jian's true cultivation base is not at the immortal venerated realm, but the immortal king realm? Roar. Strange roars suddenly came from the sky. As soon as he heard the roars, Venerated 6 Directions' expression changed, and he cried out involuntarily. Not good. The commotion caused by Zhao Jian entering the 7th floor is too big. It has alarmed the monsters of this floor. A total of 27 ice coffins flew towards Ning Fan in the shape of an arrow. Each of the ice coffins contained an ancient corpse. 27 ancient corpses were rushing towards Ning Fan. They were existences that were equivalent to 27 immortal venerated realm experts. Ning Fan had just entered the 7th floor, and he was already going to be besieged by 27 immortal venerated realm experts. If he doesn't have any powerful life-saving techniques, he will definitely die. Venerated Six Directions felt his scalp go numb. He had also been attacked by the ancient corpses earlier, but he was only attacked by 3 of them. Even so, he was still heavily injured. That was how he managed to escape from the 3 ancient corpses with great difficulty. Now, there were a total of 27 ancient corpses surrounding Ning Fan. Even an ancient immortal king might not be able to fight against 27 immortal venerated realm ancient corpses head-on. Venerated Six Directions wanted to remind Ning Fan to run away and not fight against the corpses. However, he did not say anything in the end. He did not dare to make a sound, nor did he dare to spread his spirit sense to transmit his voice. He was afraid that the 27 ancient corpses would notice his voice and spirit sense and turn around to attack him. Only God knew that the current Six Directions, immortal venerated Six Directions, had to carefully conceal his chi with every step he took, afraid that he would be attacked by the ancient corpses in this place. How would he still dare to remind Ning Fan? Venerated Miao Yan, on the other hand, bit her lips hard. She had also been attacked by the ancient corpses before and suffered a great loss. Thus she knew how powerful they were. If it were someone else who was attacked by the ancient corpses, she would probably not dare to warn Ning Fan in order to protect herself. However, it was Ning Fan who was being attacked by the ancient corpses today. Perhaps Ning Fan had not encountered these ancient corpses when he passed through the 6th floor. Thus, he did not know how terrifying they were. The physical bodies of these ancient corpses could not even be damaged by a 12th Nirvana realm acquired magic treasure. Perhaps Ning Fan still did not know about these things. It would be fine if there were only 1 or 2 of these ancient corpses. However, if there were too many of them and they all attacked at once, they would definitely be invincible. Did Ning Fan know about this? Fellow Taoist Zhao, quickly conceal your chi. Return to the 6th floor for the time being. Venerated Miao Yan transmitted her voice to Ning Fan in the end. She did not have the time to explain to Ning Fan how terrifying these ancient corpses were. All she could do was to tell him the method to deal with them. Escape and hide. Conceal your chi and temporarily return to the lower floor of the Heaven Imperial Court to avoid the pursuit of these ancient corpses. Venerated Miao Yan was extremely nervous. Ning Fan had saved her life before. She did not want him to die here. Fortunately, Ning Fan had just entered the 7th floor. He just needed to turn around, and he would be able to return to the 6th floor through the spatial turbulence. Now, however, he was not afraid at all. Ning Fan had gained some new insights about the life-slaying sword. The profound meaning of this sword lay in the 4 words: the stronger the enemy is, the stronger the enemy is. After comprehending this profound meaning, Ning Fan's mastery of the life-slaying sword had almost instantly risen to an extremely high level. The most important thing for the 5 yin-yang swords that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had passed down to him was to comprehend the profound meaning of each sword technique. Ning Fan did not utter a single word. Facing the onslaught of the corpses, he just shook the separation and reunion sword and pointed it at the sky. Rays of moonlight sword light appeared one after another, increasing in number. 10 rays, 100 rays, 1,000 rays, 10,000 rays, 60,000 rays. Previously, when facing the 12 ancient corpses, Ning Fan could only produce 1,000 rays of life-slaying sword light. Now that he was facing more than 600 ancient corpses, he could produce 60,000 rays of sword light. The more rays of sword light there were, the stronger its destructive power would be. The profound meaning of the life-slaying sword was indeed that the stronger the enemy is, the stronger the enemy is. On the opposite side, Ning Fan's undying chi soared into the sky. His sword chi also soared into the sky. So what if he is strong? I also have a sword in my hand. This sword could slay lives. All living beings in the world would perish under this sword. When the 60,000 rays of sword light converged, they actually formed a 1,000 zhonglong white sword light. It vaguely cut open the forbidden power of this place. Since it could even cut open the forbidden power of this place, the destructive power of this 60,000 rays of sword light was already extremely terrifying. However, the strange thing was that the sword light that could even cut open the forbidden power seemed to be extremely harmless to cultivators. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. He tried to leap on top of the 1,000 zhonglong sword light. Stepping on the sword light, he was not harmed by the sword chi at all. This life-slaying sword light was indeed weak against cultivators who had yet to attain the undying and indestructible state. Stepping on the sword light, Ningfan actually controlled the sword light and began to fly in this nine heavens imperial court where flying was prohibited. The six Unity Immortal Venerate widened his eyes in disbelief at the scene in front of him. What did he just see? Ningfan was actually flying on his sword in this nine heavens imperial court, with just a style of sword light. What surprised him even more was the reaction of the 600+ ancient corpses when they saw the sword light. This time, only 10 or so ancient corpses foolishly did not dodge or retreat. Instead, they continued to attack Ningfan. The rest of the ancient corpses almost did the same thing. All of them were extremely terrified. They turned into black shadows and rushed out of the ice coffins, fleeing in all directions. Most of the 600+ ancient corpses which were comparable to immortal venerates were actually scared away by Ningfan's sword light. What kind of ability is this? I've actually never heard of it before. The 5 yin-yang swords was the ultimate art of great Emperor Ancient Chaos that was not passed down to others. In today's world, almost no one had seen this ultimate art with their own eyes. Even those who have heard of it were rare. With the experience of a 6 Unity Immortal Venerate, he naturally could not recognize the life-slaying sword. Seeing that most of the ancient corpses were fleeing while only 10 or so ancient corpses were courting death, Ningfan sighed softly. Since seniors have come to seek death, this junior will send you all to hell. His tone was no longer as arrogant as before. Instead, he simply flew on his sword. Just 10 or so ancient coffins collided with the 1,000 zhang long sword light head-on. The ancient coffins exploded one after another. The 10 or so ancient corpses in the coffins did not even have the chance to scream before they were cut into black ashes that filled the sky and dissipated. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerate could not believe the scene in front of him. More than 10 ancient corpses which were comparable to immortal venerates were killed by Ningfan with a single sword strike in just a single move. Moreover, there were more than 600 ancient corpses which were scared away by Ningfan. Moreover, Ningfan was still flying on his sword in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, where the sky was forbidden. This. Impossible. Could this Zhao Jian be an immortal emperor? But even if he is an immortal emperor, the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate could not imagine what cultivation-based Ningfan had to be able to do such a shocking thing. How can this malefic star have such terrifying strength? Isn't he a cultivator of the Duzhen realm? Even Zhu Gong was shocked. The combat power that Ningfan had displayed had already exceeded Zhu Gong's understanding. He inwardly speculated that perhaps even a quasi-saint realm expert would not have the ability to do what Ningfan did in the current Dharma-ending era. Killing more than 10 immortal venerates with a single sword strike, scaring away hundreds of immortal venerates and flying while ignoring the forbidden power of the sky. Venerate Miao Yin was also so shocked that she could not speak a word. She just stared at Ningfan with her beautiful eyes blankly, feeling a little dazed as if she was in a dream. She had never underestimated Ningfan's strength. She even believed that Ningfan had combat power that was comparable to an ancient immortal venerate. However, it seemed like she had still underestimated Ningfan. Ningfan flew on the 1,000 zhang sword light. He could feel that as the ancient corpses ran further away, the sword light became slightly unstable. Perhaps it would shatter in no time. Since he could fly on his sword, why not make use of it? Flying directly to the 8th floor was much faster than going through the palace at a slow pace. As long as he could get to the 8th floor before the sword light crumbled, it would be fine. The sword light continued to fly at full speed and flew above Venerate Miao Yin. When Ningfan saw her pale face, an idea came to his mind. He made a grabbing motion with his 5 fingers, and directly pulled Venerate Miao Yin to the 1,000 zhang sword light. Let's go together, Ningfan said calmly. He could see that Venerate Miao Yan's injuries were extremely severe. Now that all the ancient corpses on the 7th floor had been awakened by Ningfan, Ningfan was worried about leaving Venerate Miao Yin alone on the 7th floor. Ningfan had quite a good impression of Venerate Miao Yin, even though it was not romantic. Venerate Miao Yan's face turned slightly red. She did not say anything and just nodded her head obediently. It was her first time being directly pulled onto a sword light by a man and flying on it. Her injuries were extremely severe, and she really could not hold on for much longer. If it was not because of that, she would not have been pulled onto the flying sword by Ning Fan so easily. She really did not have any extra magic power left. The sword light continued to move forward and flew above Venerate Miao Yan's head. Ning Fan was very sorry, but he did not have the intention to pull Venerate Miao Yan onto the flying sword. Speaking of which, he still had quite a grudge against her. He would just leave her alone on the 7th floor and slowly climb up. If she gets surrounded by the ancient corpses and gets into danger, it would have nothing to do with Ning Fan. What obligation did he have to help a person whom he had a grudge against? Not to mention that they were all humans, and that they should preserve their combat power to fight for the ancient passage. Ning Fan was not a member of the Four Mysterious sect, at least not now. He had no obligation to help the Four Mysterious sect fight for the ancient passage. He had seen the gray moon on the top floor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court with his own eyes. It was very dangerous. If it is not necessary, he would not get involved in this mess. The reason why he came to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court was to seize the souls of the 1 million barbarians. That was all. His purpose was quite clear. Moreover, Venerate Miao Yan's abilities were not weak. If Ning Fan did not use the unity of heaven and man, he would not be able to sense the existence of Venerate Miao Yan. Venerate Miao Yan's concealment technique was really not weak. His magic power was also abundant. It should not be difficult for him to hide from the senses of the ancient corpses in this place. Fellow Taoist Zhao, can you bring me along to show off and fly? Venerate Miao Yan did not have the time to say such words, because Ning Fan did not stop and directly flew away on his flying sword. The speed of the sword light was too fast. It was so fast that Venerate Miao Yan could not even finish his sentence and Ning Fan's figure was already out of sight. The surrounding sky was filled with more than 600 ancient corpses. Some of the ancient corpses heard Venerate Miao Yan's words and flew towards the direction of his voice. Venerate Miao Yan let out a bitter sigh. He immediately calmed his mind and activated his concealment technique to its maximum, hiding from the senses of those ancient corpses. Ning Fan did not bring him along, but he did not dare to blame him. He did not dare to do so at all. The reason why he dared to make things difficult for Ning Fan and threaten him in the past was because he looked down on Ning Fan's weakness. Today, however, the strength that Ning Fan displayed made him shudder with fear. Hence, he firmly believed that Ning Fan was an immortal emperor or even a quasi-saint. The weakness that he displayed in the past was probably all an act. A true immortal could not disguise himself as an immortal emperor, but an immortal emperor could easily disguise himself as a true immortal, right? Thinking about this, how would the Venerate Miao Yan dare to complain about Ning Fan? Even if he did, he would only keep it in his heart and would not dare to say it out loud. The strong were everything. Today, Ning Fan was terrifyingly strong. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.